Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Market Open. Folks, we are green in the pre-markets, and we're really green. And the reason we are really green, when I mean really green, I mean S&P 500 just hit 676. We're talking about new all-time highs in the pre-market type of green. It's because of CPI, which I'm not going to lie, I forgot was coming out this morning. And I think a lot of you guys also probably forgot that it was coming out this morning. But it did, and it was better than expected. It was better than expected. CPI comes in at 3% versus 3.1%. This is the highest read since January. August was at 2.9. So we are up a little bit month over month. But it's lower than expectations. It came in lower than expectations. This kind of changes a lot of dynamics. There is a lot to talk about in terms of how the macro reacts to this. Obviously, the stock market is really excited about this, and you're seeing this in equity prices. I mean, NVIDIA 184, Tesla still holding 447, Palantir trying to break 184. Grab was at 548 3 days ago. It's at 586. Robinhood 139 trying to break 140. Amazon 221. Meta breaking through 740. Salesforce up another 1%. And we got everything across the board. Ethereum, it was just at 4,000 before I went live. Now it's just below 4,000. But still, 39.64. Bitcoin right here at 111. BMNR was breaking 52. I mean, you are seeing a decent amount of excitement. We'll see if this gets faded when the market opens or if this has some legs to continue. But as of now, it looks like the market is happy with the CPI. Let's get a little bit more coverage on this, and then we'll talk about some more of these implications.
Coming out, September read on the Consumer Price Index. Headline number up 0.3, 1/10 cooler than both rearview mirror and what we were expecting. And if we look at the stripping out of food and energy known as core, it comes in also a bit less than expected, up 0.2. We were expecting up 0.3. Our last look was up 0.3. Here's the Moneyball numbers. Year over year, 3%. And even though it's less than the 3.1 we were expecting, it's hotter than 2.9. And after all, it's got a 3 handle. And if we look at CPI year over year ex food and energy, it also comes in at 3%. We're also expecting 3.1, but last look was 3.1, so it cooled a bit. So we're seeing interest rates move down and stocks move up. You may be asking why. The easy answer, because it's less than expectations. Is it less than the Fed's target of 2%? No. Which, in my opinion, that fact will rise above all the issues of the day at some point. But yes, we do see rates moving a bit lower. Ultimately, this is a very important number because the market, without any data points, has been pretty much viewed on the notion that the labor market is slowing, and that really is a good thing if you're looking for the Fed cycle to continue its rate cuts. Now, how does this figure in? I can't speak for Fed officials, but if you really have an agnostic view and you look at these numbers, the last thing you think about is we're closing in on the Fed's target. Joe and the gang, back to you.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean they're not going to be cutting rates. I mean, the probabilities for cutting continue to be pretty high, still at 98.9%. They might not cut 3 times, as some people are saying, towards the end of the year, like an additional 3 times from the first time we already cut, but we still might get those 2 cuts that people are looking for. In terms of the summary of this, energy, folks, was the biggest factor. The index for gasoline rose 4.1% in September, was the largest factor of all the monthly items increased. Energy was up 1.5 overall. Food was up 0.2% of the month, and home index increased 0.1%. Indexes that increased over the month include shelter, airline fares, recreation, household furnishings and operations, and apparel. Apparel was one of the largest ones. The indices for motor vehicle insurance, used cars and trucks, and communication were among the few that actually decreased. Market loves it. Market absolutely loves it right now. AMD all-time highs. There you go in the pre-market, 242.94. SoFi trying to break 29. Google at 256. You got Rocket Lab trying to potentially get back into the 70s. Dell's up 3%. SMCI, which took a nasty 9% beating, that's getting a 2% reversal. Apple 261. Elf's up 1.58%. Iran, I think, was hitting 60. Iran 61. And that means the other ones are probably going with it. If we look at Cypher, that's up 8%. CleanSpark's up 6. Wolf's up 6. Bitfarm's up 12. Hive's up 5. Marathon's up 3. Riot's up 4. Galaxy is up 3. Broadcom, that one I saw in the pre-markets as well. That was green. and that's up 2.84%. All right, so let me ask a question to everybody, because this is something I was thinking about in the morning before I got the CPI data. I was thinking about this really for the past couple of days now, and the CPI data might be potentially kind of confirming it. So on Monday, we had, let's call it, well, realistically, this started 2 weeks ago. This started October 10th. By the way, the drawdown has been so bad over the past, we're down 1 or 2% away from all-time highs, which is quote unquote so bad. Renaissance Technologies, the massive hedge fund, they took a $3 billion loss on paper over the past 14 days, ever since the whole Trump China stuff started, which is kind of crazy. So their gains for the year have gone to zero, and the S&P 500 is up 12%. Now, they'll probably recover that over the next couple of days, but it just goes to show how much money was in the system that ended up getting wiped out from some of these funds because they were levered long on some of these names. And then when you take a 3% drawdown, it really takes a hit. So the 3% drawdown on the S&P ended up creating a massive high beta drawdown, momentum stock drawdown, whatever you want to call it. The Oklos of the world, nuclear stocks, quantum stocks, all that stuff really took a bit of a beating over the past couple of weeks. Here's the question to everybody in the chat. Now that we have CPI data and we have some pretty good earnings data that we've seen over the past couple of days, and next week will be the big one for earnings, is the drawdown in momentum stocks done? That is my question. Is the drawdown in momentum stocks done? Do you think that is the case? Because if it is the case, then obviously anyone who has bought the dip over the past couple of days in anything, no matter what the stock is, I mean, you can see everything is up right now. HIMS is up, ASTS, MicroStrategy, Uber, etc. You're green. Now, look, ASTS maybe is not going back to 102 anytime soon, but that doesn't mean it's going back down to 36. And I think it's the same thing for like an Oklo. Maybe it's not going back to 195 anytime soon, but it might not be going back to 85 either. So it chills out in the 130s, 140s type of range. I don't know if we have the ability to have those momentum stocks make new all-time highs like the S&P 500 is making right now, and that's probably healthy because those stocks likely didn't deserve to be at those types of levels, at least not yet. But that also means that if the S&P 500 is at all-time highs and we've basically flushed out all of the froth that was there, maybe not all of it, but to an extent, a decent chunk of it, then maybe this is creating the next leg up to go higher. Their earnings haven't come out yet. That's a good point. Their earnings haven't come out yet, and that's another question on what's going to happen with a lot of those names. But the sort of structural drawdown that we saw across a lot of names that just took a beating, and again, every name took a beating, right? Palantir took a beating. It got to 169. Hood got to 120. Those names took a beating. Grab took a beating. SoFi got to 25. They took a beating, but they didn't take as big of a beating as some of those other names. But if everything is kind of back to a little bit more of a stabilized perspective on this, maybe that beating theoretically might not be that crazy. Fundstrat says there could be a correction in the next few weeks. I haven't seen their technical analysis from Mark Newton. I'll try to pull up what he said. But maybe, so that's why I'm asking the question, because could this be setting up a little bit more of another drawdown because we don't really have anything fundamental, government's still shut down, et cetera, to say that we're out of the, basically I'm trying to say, are we out of the woods? Are we out of the woods for the volatility of October? It's been a very choppy October. Could we potentially end out October green? Which, by the way, if October ended today, we would be green. The S&P's at all-time highs. We would be green. That is what I'm curious to see what people are thinking. But it definitely has been a past two crazy. I mean, yeah, Amit took a beating as a dude. I was down like 130 grand 3 days ago. Like, I think right now, let's open up the port. I haven't looked at it all morning. It's up 134. That, like, it's literally, it's reversing almost everything that we've seen over the past couple of days. And I'm sure that's very similar for a lot of people as well. So that is kind of the reason for this question. Let's get a little bit more coverage right here on CPI, and then we'll get into some of the other macro data that we have from last night.
What you were expecting, is it not?
Yeah, it's even a little bit softer. And so that's great news for the Fed in terms of their ability to cut in October, which didn't really seem that much in doubt, but also to follow the dot plot in December. You've had some people on the Fed who are on the more hawkish side of things who've since September pushed back on what seemed like a dovish shift. And of course, we haven't gotten very much data since then, of course, but what little data we do have now from just now does appear to make it seem like inflation fears are at least a little bit, we're a little bit too high given what we're getting in so far.
So the market has been strong, Michael, and Rick makes that point. Any AI tailwind that makes it less fundamentally based than we think?
No, I think, listen, fundamentals, Joe, are pretty strong right now, and there's no doubt about it. The economy is not weak per se. I mean, you've had pockets of weakening. I really do believe we're in a K-shaped economy where the lower end is maybe not quite as strong as the higher end. Today's number for me is actually about broadening more than it is about AI, although probably the first step forward is going to be more about AI and some of the momentum plays, just because they are juiced by liquidity and we do have easy financial conditions, and this will sort of portend more of that. But, I think you can make an argument that you get some broadening here, and it's not just about AI.
And that broadening obviously would be very healthy. Having a CPI come in better than expected also would be healthy. 57% of you say yes, the momentum drawdown is over. 50% of you say yes, the momentum drawdown is over. I mean, look, the way some of these stock prices are reacting to CPI, which, like, it's good CPI, but I mean, I've covered CPI for the past 2 years. This is not a phenomenal reading of CPI. I mean, it's the highest read since January. It's better than expectations, and in the stock market, perception is more important than reality most of the time, but it's still an aggressive read. I just think because we've got so little data and the market was so happy to finally get some piece of tangible data that could justify like that inflation is not as bad as expected. That's why you're seeing some of this momentum right here across the entire board. Now we're going to see at 9:30. Let's do another poll right here. Do you think we end up green or red for the day? It would be a pretty big whipsaw if we end up actually going red on this. But would be curious to see kind of how people think this day would end out. All right, so let's talk about some of the other stuff that happened overnight. So the CPI story took away from the most important story that happened last night, which I don't even know if it's really that important because I don't know if the market cares. But Trump tweeted at about 10 p.m. The Ronald Reagan Foundation has just announced that Canada has fraudulently used an advertisement, which is fake, featuring Ronald Reagan speaking negatively about tariffs. The ad was for $75,000. The only reason they did this is to interfere with the decision of the U.S. Supreme Court and other courts. Tariffs are very important to the national security of the United States. Based on their egregious behavior, all trade negotiations with Canada are hereby terminated. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this came out at 10:40, and immediately I did what everyone else did, which is you went to your brokerage app and you looked to see like how bad is the carnage, and like it was nothing. No one cared. No one freaking cared. If that country that started with a C was China instead of Canada, I don't know if CPI would have been able to save us. Remember, the whole reason this drawdown started 2 weeks ago on October 10th is because of a tweet about China. So it's quite incredible. It's almost like the market doesn't care at all about Canada. Also, do we not think Mark Carney is going to call up Trump and be like, yo, I'm sorry, you got offended by the bubble. Like, they were just laughing with each other. What was it? A week and a half ago in the Oval Office. So like, I really don't think the market thought this was serious. And as a result, that's why he had some of the pain. This is the ad for those that wanted some context that Trump was so pissed off about.
When someone says, let's impose tariffs on foreign imports, it looks like they're doing the patriotic thing by protecting American products and jobs. And sometimes for a short while it works, but only for a short time. But over the long run, such trade barriers hurt every American worker and consumer. High tariffs inevitably lead to retaliation by foreign countries and the triggering of fierce trade wars. Then the worst happens. Markets shrink and collapse, businesses and industries shut down, and millions of people lose their jobs. Throughout the world, there's a growing realization that the way to prosperity for all nations is rejecting protectionist legislation and promoting fair and free competition. America's jobs
All right.
and growth are at stake.
So this is what this was paid for the government of Ontario. Obviously, Trump was pissed off on that. He thought it lacked context, was fake, yada, yada. I mean, that was enough for him to create that tweet. And again, the markets just didn't react to it. The markets really just didn't react to it. So, yeah, I mean, Trump's point is that it's out of context and it's like it's misinterpreting what they said. And, he governs policy through tweeting. And so that's what he said yesterday. But the point is for investors, no one cared, which is kind of hilarious because you would think like there would be some impact of Trump saying we're not going to do trade with China or all negotiations are quote unquote over. But the market was just like, no, they're not. You'll be back to normal in a couple of days. You'll be okay. And as a result, you get good CPI. And now we're continuing to go green. So There you go. App Lovin' right there, 608. That's up 3%. Circle's up 2.4. Pinterest is up 2.1. The Qs are up 1%. CrowdStrike up 1%. I mean, today, if a stock is red, you really got to question why the hell it's red. Like Tesla just had earnings. So, I mean, you can understand why that, but Tesla's barely down from earnings, which, is pretty incredible given the earnings weren't amazing. I mean, it would be remarkable to see all of this go to the downside and have a little bit of a U-turn. But everything, and it's kind of like things have been coiled up a little bit as well. That things have wanted to rally. They needed a real catalyst. And this CPI news could be the reason why we are getting this rally. Bitfarms is red. Bitfarms was just green, bro. It was up 6%. No, Bitfarms is up 11%. Bitfarms is green. Maybe it's not up as much as it was before, but pretty much everything is still holding on to green. Algos, hold my beer. Maybe algos are saying hold my beer. What did you guys say in the poll? 85% of you think it ends out green. All right, we're going to see, dude. I don't know if we are out of the woods. My gut wants to tell me yes, because we're almost near the end of October. November, December tends to be a better time for the market. Money market funds added even more money yesterday on the sidelines. Eventually, that money is going to come out, and that money is going to be looking for an opportunity when rates come down. Rates are ready to come down in less than 10 days. Earnings so far have been good. We're going to talk about earnings next in a second. And overall, like, how low do these stocks have to go? I mean, even the high beta momentum names, they've already taken all of them, whether it's quantum, nuclear, rare earth, Bitcoin miners, they've all taken. I mean, they're all still down, even after they've recovered a little bit over the past 48 hours. Oklo's still down 21% this week. So it's like, does it really need to go that much lower? And if it doesn't, then maybe that is a sort of structural bottom we're seeing across the board. And if that's the case, we might be going higher. All right, so let's get into some of the other stories that we got. Shout out to Nebius, by the way, as well. I mean, I almost thought I was going to get assigned on my 98 puts on Wednesday. That was a great day for anyone who bought the dip across the entire board, whether it was SoFi, Nvidia, Nebius, CoreWeave. I mean, Nebius, look at that, 112.89. Up 6.3%, which gets us AMD. Wow, 244. Look at that, 4% move. Maybe we see Nvidia follow AMD and get a little bit of a breakout. Remember, Nvidia was 195 a couple weeks ago, but AMD really outshining in the semi space. Is TSM back above 300? TSM very close. ASML at 1,038. Okay, so let's have this sort of transition into the data center conversation, because this is the other big story that came out last night, and this is why Nebius, CoreWeave, et cetera, a lot of these names are also green. Well, we got a lot of debt coming into Oracle. Oracle completed a $38 billion debt deal to finance, you guessed it, more data centers. This is quite remarkable. $23.25 billion will be financed for a data center in Texas. $14.75 billion will be financed for a data center in Wisconsin. Vantage Data Centers is developing both of those, which are going to be used by Oracle to power another company that we all know about, OpenAI. The Saudis are getting involved in this. The Japanese are getting involved in this. Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, BlackRock, all your typical vendors that you would understand as like critical parts of the financing project for a lot of data centers that have been very vocal that they want to commit finance to this opportunity. They are part of this. Now, there's a bull case to this and there's a bear case to this. And let's do the bear case first. I think all of you guys understand the bear case. It's one of the things that's kind of glaring you right in the eye, which is that this $38 billion is not free cash flow. It's not net income. It's not operating income. It is debt. It is debt. Oracle's taking on basically $40 billion worth of debt, likely through the sale of corporate bonds, which they did a couple of weeks ago as well, to the tune of $13 billion, and they were paying 6.5% on those corporate bonds. And so in layman's terms, they are getting $40 billion. They are saying, hey, we'll pay you back the $40 billion with 6%, 5%, 7%, whatever rate they're offering to the debt issuers. And the debt issuers are happy to give the money because they believe that data centers are real. There's going to be an ROI on all this AI CapEx spend. And Oracle knows that their market cap is likely going to go much higher, and they can afford to pay back that debt eventually, even with interest, because of how massive the opportunity is for data centers. And I think that is one of the major reasons IREN and Cypher and a lot of these other smaller names, Nebius, CoreWeave, et cetera, exploded last night in the overnight market. CPI is just adding fuel to the fire. Is that Oracle saying there is $40 billion of demand, and this is just for 2 data centers in 2 different states. We're talking about data centers across the entire world. Google committed $15 billion to data centers in India on Monday. I mean, like, it seems like the demand for this product is insatiable. which is the bull case. The bear case is they're doing it through debt. And I don't know if we should be the most excited about 40 billion being financed via debt, because like if something doesn't go as planned and there is lack of an ROI, all the general bear cases around data centers and AI, Oracle stuck with $40 billion in debt, which is not the best idea. Amit, do you know how many data centers Grindr has? I do not, even though I know I'm the largest shareholder of that company. I do not know how many data centers they have. So there you go. You're green on a lot of the data center names because of this news on Oracle. I mean, look, I think it's bullish, obviously, because the fact that $40 billion is willing to go into these debt financing projects means that, the banks, institutional shareholders, investors, they want to subsidize this because they believe this is actually real and it's going to happen. The question is just, over time, is the debt going to be a burden for these companies? And if it's not, then show goes on. If it is, then we're going to have some issues. The Bitcoin mining data center companies are up because Jane Street disclosed a 5% stake in 3 of them. Okay, so let's talk about this real quick because I think it's very, very important for people to understand what's going on right here. When you see the market makers like a Jane Street or a BlackRock or a Citadel take a stake in these companies, you have to be very cautious in looking at what you're reading here. Jane Street is a market maker. They operate, essentially, the way they make their money is through a delta neutral option strategy. What does that mean? That means they are selling calls to retail shareholders. Retail shareholders are buying those call options. Jane Street is then pocketing the difference on the premium, which is pennies of a penny that they're trying to make on selling all these call options or put options, basically whatever route an investor wants to go. And they're a proprietary trading fund that makes the vast majority of its profit from market making activities. So when you see a Jane Street discloses a 5% stake in Cypher, it's not because they're actually bullish Cypher. BlackRock owns 5.7% of Robinhood. BlackRock is not screaming to the moon that they love Robinhood or something like that. BlackRock doesn't care about Robinhood. They care that if they own those shares, they're able to rent out those shares or they're able to use those shares to facilitate activities to make a market. So the headline is definitely pumping Cypher over the past 24 hours. And it's not bearish by any sense of the imagination. It's just, you got a lot of people that are thinking this is like Jane Street says we take. I mean, Jane Street took a 7% stake in Opendoor. Opendoor, they took that at an $8.50. Opendoor is down to $7, right? It's like it's not like they think Opendoor is going to $12 soon. That's why they're taking the 5% stake and get. No, there's a lot of liquidity that they have to be able to provide because there's a ton of people that trade Opendoor, and Jane Street makes its money off selling calls and puts and options to these retail shareholders. So yeah, I don't think people should be overly excited about. I remember this was back in July, overnight. But this is the same. BlackRock took like a 5.2% stake in Robinhood, and everyone was tagging like, "Oh my goodness, this is so." It's like, no, it doesn't matter. Like Vanguard, BlackRock, Jane Street, Citadel. These people have to take stakes in all these companies because at the end of the day, they make market making activities on them. So I wouldn't say that's the reason they're up. Now, the perception of that might be that because it's so green and like we love that these stocks are getting institutional investors, that's fair. But Bridgewater, an actual money manager that has an opinion on the market going long on these names, Stanley Druckenmiller, that's a lot different than a market maker. So that's the only difference there. Jane Street is not public, so you cannot buy their stock. Dude, they did this for Grab. They did this for Grab last month. It looked like it was a 2.2% stake in Grab. Grab is down for the month, right? Like this is not them expressing any point of view. They're delta neutral. They don't care. They just want to be able to make money off the premiums, and they need to own a lot of shares to be able to do that. Think of it like yourself. If you buy 100,000 shares of any stock, right? If you buy 10,000 shares of Bitfarms or 10,000 shares of Rivian or 3,000 shares of Cypher, just because you want to sell calls and milk the premium, a lot of you guys are doing that with BM&R, then you're basically a small little market maker. They're just doing it at a much higher scale. BM&R, by the way, 51.24. That is also green. The Qs are up almost 1%. NASDAQ really getting some love. Wow, 616. I think that's all-time highs for the NASDAQ as well. Basically all-time highs for the NASDAQ in the pre-market. If this can stick when the market opens, this would also be very, very bullish to see how this ends up playing out. APLD, is that moving as well? APLD, yep, that's up 5%. All right, so let's talk about earnings that we had yesterday. First of all, Intel, massive earnings. This stock is up 6%. I feel like this was such a layup when it was $24, and we should have been a lot more bullish on it because Donnie T gave us the playbook. But I missed this one and it ended up working out. Now, what also helps is if they can beat on earnings, and boy, did they beat on earnings. 2,200% beat. 2,200%, 23 cents versus 1 cent expected. That'll definitely get the stock to go up. EPS is up 150% year over year. The stock is up more than 90% year to date. 13.6 billion in revenue versus 13.1 billion. They beat by 4%. So this is very, very exciting to see. Yeah, only 2,200%, which is what you've got going on. Now, it's not just Intel yesterday. I mean, pretty much every company beat on the top and the bottom line. So you got Intel right there that beat by 22%. Deckers beat by 15% on EPS. Newmont beat by 19%. Ford beat by 25%. We're talking about freaking Ford, legacy auto company. They also beat by $3 billion on revenue, which means there was $3 billion worth of more demand for Ford to be able to sell these cars. Next Tracker beat by 18%. Digital Realty beat by 510%. EPS was up 13% year over year. I think the core argument for all these companies that beat yesterday on earnings, and the majority of companies that we've covered over the past couple of weeks have really beat on that top line. And even if they came in line with expectations on revenue, most of them are beating on the top line, is that there is margin efficiency that is happening across the board. And this is the real reason to be bullish for a Cipher or Iran or any of these other data center plays, is because the reason some of these companies are beating, if it is because of AI and increasing their margins, that goes back down to the data centers. Like if these companies are utilizing artificial intelligence, increasing their margins, that means you need compute. In order to keep increasing their margins, you need more and more demand for that compute. Based on this Oracle deal, we're seeing more and more demand. And then these smaller companies, Nebius, CoreWeave, Iran, Cipher, Galaxy, et cetera, they are the ones that are getting a lot of these deals because they have more facilities than other people. And that is leading back to the ecosystem of a lot of these other companies, whether it's an Intel or a Realty Income, that are actually generating EPS growth. EPS growth means that they're earning more per share. If they're earning more per share, that means their margins are likely going up against expectations. And that means there is some reason for their margins going up for them to deliver that EPS. By the way, a lot of these companies don't have a massive buyback plan either. Maybe next week, the Amazon's Google, well, Amazon doesn't buy back, but Google, Meta, they have more buyback. But like Intel's not buying back a ton of stock. Ford's not buying back a ton of stock. So a lot of these companies are not just artificially financially engineering their EPS to go up. It really does feel like margin enhancement across the board. By the way, a lot of these companies as well, Deckers is a consumer brand. They sell shoes to people. That, like, the fact that people, where we hear about what's going on with the state of the consumer, if the consumer is able to buy, now Deckers is down 12%, so the stock is not necessarily reacting as positively, but if the consumer is still able to buy shoes at the level at which they're buying them, that's bullish. Ford, it's a consumer brand. People are buying cars, and if they're buying it at the level that is way ahead of expectations, $3 billion more than expected, again, that feels bullish. And so there's a lot of conflicting data here because there's tons and tons of data we looked at on why the consumer is struggling: private credit, auto delinquencies, credit card loans, et cetera. But then you look at these earnings, and unless these numbers are fake, if more and more people are buying shoes and jeans with Levi's a couple weeks ago and cars with Ford, I mean, maybe the consumer is not necessarily in that bad of a place, especially with CPI starting to be a little bit lower than expected. Maybe inflation is not eating them up as much as people thought as well. They're all buying on credit. It's all doom spending. I mean, look, that is one theory, and maybe that's possible, that all of them are, just taking out loans for all this stuff, and that could come back to hurt people. But if that's not, AMD right there, 243, then maybe it's not horrible. Maybe it's not horrible. They are buying cars, but behind on their payments. Yeah, I mean, and that is the contradiction, right? Like we saw the chart a couple of days ago that they are auto delinquencies, not auto delinquencies, but people who are late on their payments by over 60 days has doubled in the past 5 years. So it's like, okay, Ford's selling more cars, but if the people that are buying it aren't making their payments, that is the conundrum that we have to navigate with. And maybe that comes to bite everyone back in the ass, and that ends up hurting the entire economy, or that is a subsection of the consumer that might not have the biggest impact. So we got to see. We got to see. So remember how I said if your stock is red right now, then something is deeply wrong? Well, one of the companies that's red, even after this bullish CPI, is Snapchat. And I think it's because of this headline that we're seeing right here. Snapchat is in talks to raise $1 billion for their AR glasses. Multiple investors involved, including Saudi Arabia's sovereign wealth fund. Plan is to move Specs, which is their Snapchat AR glasses, into a new independent subsidiary and structure it similarly to Waymo and Alphabet. This was kind of funny. This was kind of funny to me to see this end up playing out. First of all, Snapchat, has been horrible to shareholders. They haven't been able to make a profit. Evan Spiegel really has not cared about any meaningful form of shareholder value creation via buybacks, dividends, anything. And now they want to dilute by another $1 billion for a company's market cap, which is only $13 billion, to be able to potentially try to get some more money, not through free cash flow, but through more equity, aka dilution, to build out their Snapchat glasses product. I mean, again, every time I think about taking a chance on Snapchat, I'm like, okay, this thing's at $7. It could do a little re-rating. They still have 750 million monthly active users. And then you get a news update like that, and you're like, this is why it's hard to bet on Snapchat. So there you go. Snapchat's still red right there. And ultimately, they might be taking on some more debt or issuing more equity to be able to raise another $1 billion right here. Tesla right here at 447. S&P, look at that, 676 in the pre-markets. We are continuing to be green. Jerome Powell is not talking today, to my understanding. I don't believe that Jay Powell is having any major conversation today. But I think the Fed is in a quiet period as well, because we're going to have the FOMC meeting coming out next week, along with SoFi earnings, which is going to be very important as well. All right, so that's what we have there across the board on CPI. In terms of government shutdown, we don't have any major updates outside of that. The government continues to be shut down. Again, Trump blamed the Democrats yesterday. Bernie Sanders blamed the Republicans. So you have a lot of back and forth, and maybe next week we'll get some level of resolution. Kevin Hassett did say he thought it could get resolved this week. Unfortunately, that's not necessarily what we're seeing across the board. These are the CPI numbers for those that missed it. Again, we came in a bit better than expected. That's what really got the market to get some love. At 9:30, we're going to see how much the market continues to believe that CPI is in the right spot. And it is the highest read since January, but at least it's better than from before, which is important. Crypto. Let's talk a little bit more about crypto. So we had some big updates today in the world of crypto that actually potentially were the reasons why Ethereum and Bitcoin broke out a little bit in the morning. Take a look at this, folks. JP Morgan, as per Bloomberg, will allow Bitcoin and Ethereum as collateral if you now want to take out a loan or if you want to finance an opportunity. JP Morgan plans to allow institutional clients to use their holdings of Bitcoin and Ether as collateral for loans by the end of the year in a significant deepening of Wall Street's crypto integration. The program offered globally will rely on a third-party custodian to safeguard the pledged tokens. According to people familiar with the matter, it builds on JP Morgan's earlier move to accept crypto-linked ETFs as collateral. JP Morgan declined to comment, but Bloomberg is reporting that this is happening. How many people think this is a good idea for institutional investors? They didn't notice, I mean, they didn't say retail investors yet, but they did say institutional clients that probably have significant stakes in like a BlackRock ETF or an Ether ETF or something as collateral. Will they accept Farcoin? Yeah, see, if they accept Farcoin, that would definitely help collateralize some loans that people want to get. But look, I think this is bullish for the broader industry. I mean, when you have the most important consumer finance companies coming out and saying, hey, we are ready to take your Bitcoin as collateral before we give you a loan, it only institutionalizes and legitimizes Bitcoin and all these other asset classes even more. And I feel like it's bullish. Now, if Bitcoin were to collapse, that would suck. Because then, they're holding the bag. But then you have to ask yourself, why is JP Morgan even thinking of allowing their collateral to be at such risk to going away? Like if you came to JP Morgan and said, hey, I have 10,000 shares of Apple stock, can I get a loan? I mean, they're probably gonna take you seriously, right? Because they're like, okay, Apple's probably not going away anytime soon. Maybe it has a bit of a drawdown, but we can take the risk on giving you the loan, because even if there is a drawdown, we know that Apple will come back and it'll be okay. That's the entire concept of margin, right? If you own really safe stocks in your brokerage, like Apple, Google, you're gonna get more margin. If you own really risky stocks, high beta stocks, they're not going to give you as much money because they're afraid that those stocks could end up tanking. It's almost like JP Morgan's admitting we're not that afraid of Bitcoin and Ethereum tanking. And if they do tank, we would probably buy the dip, and we think it'll eventually come back. So we're not going to give you a margin call unless things get like really, really bad. But there's safeguards in place to necessarily deal with that. Yeah, and it's also funny because as Cactus says right there, Jamie Dimon speaks very negatively about Bitcoin and Ethereum, but then what his firm is doing is the exact opposite. And then if we go deeper into Ethereum, this came out yesterday. Robinhood has now brought on 493 assets on chain, including stocks, crypto ETFs, commodities, US treasuries, and private equities. Now, a lot of this is not available to people in the United States because tokenization isn't necessarily available through Robinhood in the States. A lot of this is more so being done in Europe right now, but it seems like it's happening. And the exciting thing about this and how it's playing out is Vlad was tweeting a lot last night, basically saying that tokenization is beginning to eat the entire financial system. And when people asked him, what is the next big asset to tokenize? He ended up saying real estate, which begs the question for a lot of the bulls in another stock that is called Opendoor. I mean, is there a world? That's the first place my mind went to. Is there a world where Vlad says, hey, Opendoor, you've got a ton of inventory. What if we could tokenize all those homes and make them tradable on Robinhood's blockchain? Now, again, I don't know why people would want to trade random homes. You would want to trade like stuff that has more intrinsic value. Like we're talking about commercial real estate. We're talking about, we're not talking about some random home in Arizona. We're talking about like something that people can actually resonate with, whether it's like a massive building in Manhattan or some beach house in California that's worth $40 million. Like I think there's a different way to think about the excitement of tokenization. But if there was a partnership like that, I mean, you can imagine Opendoor would bring out a new vertical for them to be able to generate revenue, and that would be massive inventory for Robinhood as well. Yeah, buying fractions of homes, all that stuff. It's just the majority of homes on Opendoor's platform. It's like I don't know who would even care about trading them. But nonetheless, it is one of those things to think about, and you're getting a lot more assets that are coming on chain for Ethereum, which is also very exciting. Doesn't Hood just become an insane holder of equities and holding houses when those equities get tokenized? Yeah, I mean that's the question, right? Would Hood actually hold the assets, or would they go through a third-party provider that operates essentially as their clearinghouse to custody the assets when we're talking about real-world assets? But then again, you would think Hood kind of has to own a piece of all that real estate if they're tokenizing it. It's a very complicated kind of mind share to work through, and Vlad did say a couple of weeks ago in an interview in Singapore that it's going to take some time for this to play out, but he does think the technology is there, and as long as the technology keeps advancing in the right direction, then this could be something that could play out. Essence says the reason the Bitcoin collateral is important is because you don't need to sell to utilize crypto profits. This is bullish. Yeah, I mean, it's like a stock, right? If you're up big on NVIDIA, but you don't want to sell your NVIDIA to pay the taxes, you can borrow against it. If you can borrow against your Bitcoin and Ethereum on an institutional level with a JP Morgan, it creates, first of all, more loans, which means more money in the system, more capital spending activity, more underwriting for a lot of these banks, which is bullish financials. But it also means that those assets don't have to be sold. I mean, how many people are sitting on massive gains in Tesla and NVIDIA from years ago that instead of selling them, which would create selling pressure on the stock, they're just saying, I'm just going to live off of them by borrowing against it, pay the 5% interest or whatever, and keep my gains for a long time. And as a result, that could be what happens on the institutional level as well. Beyond Meat, are we moving on that? Let's see how some of those names are doing. That's up, wow, 17%. All right, so CPI getting Beyond Meat to get a little bit of love as well. And that one getting some green, still down from 750. Kevin Hassett, we have some quotes from him. Hassett says, expect Trump to talk to Canada again by end of term. End of term? Does he mean the presidential term, or does he mean by the end of the year? End of term, dude. Imagine Trump doesn't talk to Canada for the next 4 years. I don't think Trump is that pissed off about the advertisement. For those that don't know what we're talking about, he tweeted last night that he's mad that China used like a Ronald Reagan ad out of context, and all trade negotiations are now canceled with China. I think he's saying this literally to negotiate. Like, we know Trump by now. Is he actually pissed off about China or Canada to such an extent? Or is he to just get a little bit of potential momentum in some of these negotiations with leverage? I said China. I meant to say Canada. Oh, wait. Did he say China on the... Let me see. Did he say... Yeah, I meant to say Canada. Hassett expects Trump to talk to Canada by end of term. Now, if Canada did, if this tweet was about China, I think we would be in a worse situation. But thankfully, it's about Canada, which is why it's not that bad. He's mad at Tanner. Yeah, Tanner did something to piss him off. Something. Amit, I have a covered call on Tesla 450 and Hood 140 expiring today. Would you roll them over now or wait to see what happens during the day? I would give yourself at least 30 minutes to see what happens. I mean, look, we have a pretty good green pre-market. We're basically at all-time highs. I definitely would, I personally would wait at least 30 minutes to an hour, especially if you're in covered calls, to see if the market can hold on to this momentum. I mean, we're not just at all-time highs, folks. The previous all-time high was 673.95. We are at 676.40. We are well above 673.95. And so if we were to have a complete meltdown as soon as the market opens and everything gets sold off, it would be a bit surprising to me. That would probably help some of your covered calls, though. But I would wait a little bit. Also, your Tesla 450 and your Hood 140 is very close to the money right now, so you can easily roll those without having to worry. But I would want to see what the trend ends up looking like. So about 80% of you say we're going green for the day. It's a pretty, I mean, this is the most green pre-market I've seen in 2 weeks. Everything, like Lilly's down, GameStop's down. GameStop was up 4% yesterday. Snapchat's down, Pfizer's down. The VIX, look at that. The VIX is down 5%. VIX was at 25 2 weeks ago. It was at 22 on Wednesday. That's when most of us, I think, took a little bit of a nibble. Whether you bought anything, I mean, you're likely green right here. Grab was at 550 that day. Palantir was at 169. Nebius was at 94. Google was at 245. AMD was at 228. Like everything. Hood was at 120. Tesla got to 415. So a lot of these names ended up being some buy the dip opportunities. Amazon got to 214. And they're getting a rebound. So now we just got to see if that momentum has the ability to take over. It is an options expiry day. It is a Friday. So you potentially could get some wonky behavior in regards to options expiring. But overall, CPI seems relatively bullish. The Canada trade escalation doesn't seem like it matters, at least for now. And we're going to see how this market plays out. Is gold actually down? We got 30 seconds. Gold is down. Gold is slightly down, but it is down. Maybe a little bit more risk on as gold goes down, equities go up. The 10-year also is flat. That's actually a pretty good scenario. Gold down, 10 years flat, equities green. I mean, this could be setting up for an explosive Friday. It really could. Might be a fun Friday for a lot of us, but we got to see how this can play out. All right. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Friday, October 24th, 9:30 a.m. The stock market is now open. All right, wake your ass up. Let's get into it. S&P 500 opens at an official all-time high. Look at that green candle. 676, baby. Tesla, 450. Robinhood, 138. Palantir busting through 184. They did get that $200 million contract with Lumen yesterday, and that was also very bullish for them. S&P again, 675.95. SoFi, 2880. Grab, 587. Google, 255. NVIDIA, that's up 1%. Maybe NVIDIA getting ready to go back to 185. Amazon, 222. It was at 223 a couple days ago, then got hit all the way to 215. Maybe coming back. Salesforce, that's up 1%. Meta, 738. That's up 0.5%. Ethereum trying to break through 4,000. Bitcoin, 111. Apple, that's up 0.5%. Elf, that's up 1%. AppLovin, that's up 2.8. Pinterest is up. Circle is up. NVIDIA is up. Tesla just goes red. Wow. I literally said 450 less than 30 seconds ago, and then it goes red. So Tesla, you got a ton of sellers at 450, but still holding on to 445, which is not too bad. Wow, Palantir, 2.7, 185. Again, 190 is that all-time high for Palantir. Where is Micron? We are green, 2.3%. ASML, that is green by about 0.5%. Even SMCI took a nasty hit yesterday. SMCI is up 1.8%. Rocket Lab, what do we got? Rocket Lab 64.13, relatively flat, but still green. ASTS 73.29, that's up about 2%. Uber goes red, but basically flat. HIMS trying to break through 50 again, 49.68, that is green. Robinhood 138.45. Google 1%. S&P 675.72. S&P very small red candle. Let's see if it develops into anything more substantial. We're seeing a couple red candles on some of these names, but a lot of these other names continuing to move higher. Ondas, this one. So the momentum names, they took a beating over the past 2 weeks. Going back to what I was saying at the beginning of the show, maybe that beating is now over. If we look at the rare earth stocks, they are all green. CRML, MP, USAR, TMQ, LAC. If we look at the Bitcoin miners, they are all green. Cypher's up 9, Iren's up 8, CleanSpark's up 5, Bitfarm's up 12, Marathon's up 3, Riot's up 3, Galaxy is up 3. CrowdStrike yesterday, that hit all-time highs. That's at another all-time high, 529.71. That's up 1.48%. SoFi, 29. Shout out to SoFi. Let's see if it can break through 30 going into earnings. Maybe. And I have to give you guys credit because you guys told me a couple days ago 2680 was the buy, and we got it at 2680. So there you go. Maybe we are on the way to SoFi for 30. Tuesday, we'll have earnings on SoFi. Tuesday, we'll have earnings for SoFi, and we're going to see what Noto can put up. S&P 500, wow, 676 is getting moved. 676, we are moving through that potentially for 677. AMD, all-time highs. Do we have AMD? Oh, my goodness. AMD and SoFi. Oh, my goodness. Dude, AMD. I think she wants 250. I think AMD wants 250. I think SoFi wants 30. I think AMD wants 250. I think SoFi wants 30. Let me check resistance on AMD. 247.55. 248 resistance on AMD is 33,000 shares. That is not a lot. Nebius should be up if AMD is up a lot. Nebius, 112. Nebius up 5.9%. CoreWeave, which fell to 115 a couple days ago. CoreWeave, 126. IBM and AMD news headline. Let me see. IBM and AMD. Okay, this was a couple hours ago. IBM says it can successfully run a quantum computing algorithm on AMD chips. The algorithm designed to correct qubit errors was executed on AMD's field programmable gate arrays. IBM plans to integrate the approach in 2029. All right, well, we know about this partnership from IBM and AMD from 3 weeks ago. I mean, they talked about this partnership around quantum computing a while ago. Stock didn't really react to that when they announced it 3 weeks ago, but on a day like this, when you get a CPI that's as bullish as we get it, wow, AMD 248.75, busted through 248 right there. NVIDIA 185, so AMD really liking that headline. S&P is about to go for 677. S&P is about to go for 677 on the day. Amazon 223. Nice to see Amazon coming back. S&P still 676.50. SMCI is trying to get back to 50. Apple almost back to all-time highs. ELF is up on the day, and then Bitcoin is green. I'm struggling to find anything that's meaningfully red. GameStop, Eli Lilly, even Archer's up today. DoorDash, there was a really stupid short report that came out yesterday on DoorDash. I mean, of all the companies you could short, the fact that they're going short DoorDash is just weird. But DoorDash did get a short report yesterday, carried a little bit of weakness, but that stock flat on the day. AMD, SoFi 29.50, up 249.30. I think she's going for 250, folks. 250 resistance on AMD I'm looking at right now is 198,000 shares. 198,000 shares. Tesla is red, but it was red in the pre-market. So that's not too surprising. Also they had earnings this week, so the street's probably reacting to that, but it's not really down that much from earnings, which is very nice to see. Hoodie back to 140. Hoodie back to 140. Reddit above 207. AMD very close to 250. And the S&P 677. Wow. Guys, we did a round trip. We recovered. We recovered and broke higher. We recovered and broke higher. We fell all the way to 647 a week and a half ago. And now it's at 677. I mean, my goodness. That is absolutely incredible. Again, if you got super bearish a couple weeks ago, it ended up being a buy the dip. And a lot of the bears, if they thought that was going to be where they kind of find their way to essentially call a thesis that would stop the earnings growth, stop the CapEx spend, claim recession. We're just not there yet. We don't have the data to suggest that's the case, and the market's not acting like that's the case either. Bitcoin 111 as well. AMD very close to 250. Here we go. This is the push. Intel earnings changed everything. Well, Intel put up some really good numbers. And here's the thing about Intel. If Intel put up those numbers, beating EPS by 2,000%, are we not expecting AMD and NVIDIA to have some good numbers? AMD 250. There it is. AMD 250 for AMD. 250.05. 250.05. The bears are an extinct animal. The Bears might have to be an extinct animal. We got to ring the bell. There you go. AMD at 250. Dude, that is a hell of a move. It was only a week and a half ago when AMD said, we'll give up 10% of our company for OpenAI. And boy, did it pay dividends. S&P is busting through 677. Did we hit 30 on SoFi again? No, we didn't hit 30 on SoFi yet. 29.87. Remember, 30.30 is the all-time high for SoFi. So 30.30 is what you got to beat for SoFi to really break above, potentially. Maybe that's where the price discovery happens. But look at that. AMD definitely getting some price discovery, 250.21, and then the S&P potentially going for 678. Google 258. Google, that's new all-time highs. Amazon 223. Salesforce up 1%. I mean, again, this is one of those green Fridays. I know it's only been 8 minutes, but we're going to see Palantir 185. Robin trying to go for 141. We're going to see if the street lets this continue, if they get upset, if we get some algos come in, or if this is how we keep going. Amcor should be green based on those Intel earnings. Yeah, there you go. Amcor 3290. That's up 2.8% as well. If we can get Ethereum to start moving, then this is going to be even more fun because you got a lot of crypto derivative assets, MicroStrategy, Ethereum, Coinbase that are probably waiting for another 20% gap up if Bitcoin and Ethereum can help the party. But you have these going green. Coinbase right there, that's up 5.4% of the day. I feel like this is one of those days that a lot of people have been waiting for. I mean, we got blessed with a lot of these days back in September and August, and maybe it got too normal, which is why we had to go through the choppiness of October. And I don't think we're out of the woods yet for October. I mean, we got to see how the rest of the earnings cycle plays out. But it definitely feels like this has been one of those days that's been coiling up, and it needed a catalyst, and it got the CPI, and that was the catalyst. And here we are. Here we are, giving some people opportunities if they bought the dip. SoFi right there, 29.50, and then AMD just below 250. Yeah, I mean, look, congrats to you if you're an AMD. This was one of the names that was hated for a good amount of time. And if you just trusted Lisa Su, who's an absolute rock star, it ended up playing out. I mean, this thing got to 70 back in April. And then after it got from 70, it was basically stuck at 105 for a while. And that OpenAI deal kind of changed the dynamics of everything. Even AppLovin was at 540 a couple days ago. At 613 now. A lot of these names kind of just taken off right here. Microsoft, that's still up 523 as well. How about Lumen? We know they announced their partnership with Palantir yesterday. Lumen is up 5%. Lumen getting a boost from this as well. Oracle, where is Oracle? They were down yesterday after they did the debt offering. Oracle is up 2.3. Oracle still down from that 350 high it hit in September. Look, at the end of the day, the debt offering is not bearish if you think there is going to be an ROI. It is bearish if you think the ROI is far from here, and it might take multiple decades versus 5 to 7 years. But overall, it feels like the more excitement these data center plays get, even if they're financed through debt, maybe it's not the worst in the world. Did we hit 186 on Palantir? Wow, we did hit 186 on Palantir. We got Palantir earnings coming up. Maybe that can create some more excitement. Tesla, again, Tesla one is the only names that's red. Now it's actually really getting red. Almost 2% down. What else is red? Let's pull up some of these other watch lists. Semis, I would imagine, are all green on the day. Semis are, yeah, look at that, across the board. Intel up 6%. Intel's now up 90% for the year. TSM up 2%. Marvell up 1%. Qualcomm up 0.5%. Micron up 3%. Dell up 2%. And then AMD up 6.3%. Netflix is red. Oh, we haven't looked at Netflix. Wow, Netflix is about to give up a big level of support. They gave up 1,100 already earlier in the week. If they actually give that up, you're in the thousands on Netflix. Yeah, I guess, again, if Netflix did not have a $700 million charge from the Brazilian tax authorities, they would have beat earnings. So that's why, even if you're not a Netflix shareholder, if you just, care about the broader market holding up, Netflix didn't miss because, consumers aren't willing to pay $15 a month anymore. It's just because of taxes. Feels like that's the main reason. They should have split. Yeah, they should have split, bro. I would have bought some Netflix the day they split, dude. sell some calls against it. Would have been easy, but they, Meta, Costco, they've not done the split yet. Open Door 770. You got a 10% move on Open Door. You got a 10% move on Open Door. Is Beyond Meat still green? Beyond Meat. Yes, it's green, 5%. It was up 19% in the pre-markets. How about D-Nut? D-Nut is red. So a lot of those meme stocks not really pushing on. Grab at 582. That's up 1.75%. SoFi 2940. SoFi is really trying to push a break above 30. I feel like would be very nice to see to end out the week. Level 1 options is on SoFi. Noto was talking about it yesterday. So, I mean, you do have a lot of excitement going into earnings. I think Noto seems pretty optimistic. And then again, all the banks already crushed it. So you can imagine that we should be continuing to see more banks do well. Did Google break 259? Really? Wow. Hold on. Let me check resistance on the Googs. Dude, I think we might see 260 for the first time. It's 50 cents away. Google, 47,000 shares at 260. 47,000 shares at 260. A couple other quotes from Hassett. Inflation is deaccelerating, takes pressure off the Fed. Trump is frustrated with progress making on Canada. National Economic Council Hassett says that Trump will speak to Canada by the end of term. Oh, SoFi got a price target upgrade, 24 to 26 by JP Morgan. That's probably another reason why it's running today. 24 to 26. They maintain a neutral, so they're not saying to buy. I love when they upgrade the price, but they say don't buy it. They're like, hey, we think it's going higher, but don't buy the stock. It's always funny when that happens. But you do have a green upgrade right there. And then UNH 360. UNH slightly green on the day. Where is Oscar? Oscar is, I mean, not as bad as it was from the Molina Healthcare 20% drawdown. Molina's down. Oscar's up. And you got some more of that green. Yeah, the Anthropic announcement for Google, that was also very, very bullish. That was also very, very bullish as well, which was nice to see. Alphabet right there at 258. Open Door still moving. And again, Lending Club had a great earnings as well. So that should also be pretty damn bullish for SoFi. 1895 on Lending Club. Google 258. You're seeing a couple of red candles on some of these stocks, but overall, I know it's only 15 minutes in. Market's trying to see if they can actually hold it green. Again, there's not that many names I'm seeing that's red. Look at the heat map here. We are pretty much green across the board. So you're seeing a lot of momentum going green. And now I think we just want to see if we can hold it till the end of the day. AppLovin right there, 616. Tesla trying to recover as well. Oh, we got PMI. Hold on, we got PMI. That's some more data. Let me pull this up. Looks like it's a beat on PMI as well, which is good. PMI comes in at 52.2 versus 52 expected. Services PMI 55.2 versus 53.5. That's a big beat. Overall composite PMI 54.8 versus 53.9. So those are two beats, one miss. The miss was very slight. And also we're going to get consumer sentiment in 15 minutes, but there's your PMI 54.8 versus 53.9. 52.2 versus 52.2, and then services 55.2 versus 54.2. Dude, that is pretty incredible. I mean, those are some pretty decent PMI numbers along with good CPI. Yeah, look at the S&P, new all-time high. S&P loves it. S&P loves it. She wants to break 678. Dude, if we touch 680, today, I think the Bears might be in shambles if that happens, dude. I think the Bears might be. This is what this market has done to Bears. Every time they give you a little bit of juice and you think, all right, this is the narrative that ruins everything. This is what collapses the financial system. It's like, no, it ends up being a buying opportunity. It ends up being a buy the dip. Steve and I were talking about this last night. What if the next 5 years, just ends up being, I'm not going out 10 years or 15 years. I'm going out just the next 5 years. I know the markets have always been a buy the dip if you zoom out long enough, but in the past 2 years, it has been a legit 3 to 5% drawdown. You hammer the buy button. And I think this has been one of the only times in history where on a 4 to 5% drawdown, even 2% drawdown, everyone hammers the buy button. I don't know if we're ever going to have a stock market where you have a multi-year cycle where you see a dip, you buy. I mean, we saw that on October 10th. Bank of America came out and said it was the largest single day inflow for individual equities in the history of the stock market. And the S&P was down 3%, which should be a relatively normal pullback. Like that's not even a correction. And it has just become an opportunity for people to get more exposure. And Steve's point last night is that there's so much more money in the system, not just from liquidity, but from investors that are interested, people that have signed up to Robinhood for the first time, people that are watching investing content and they care more about allocating their capital than, doing a different type of hobby. This becomes a sport for them. Like that's just leading to more liquidity. And as a result, people want to invest. And what do they invest in? They probably invest in things they know, like Amazon, because they use Amazon every day, or a Google. These are the names that get a lot of that liquidity. Doug says retail owns too much now. Toots haven't figured out yet how to force retail to sell low. That is such a good point. I don't think the Toots have figured out how to scare retail into really selling at the lows. And boy, did they try during April. And that shit did not work. Robinhood back to 140. It just did not work. Meta going red. Not sure why Meta's red. I'll see if there's a headline. Meta did break 740 for the first time in a month and a half. So maybe there is some resistance on a technical level. Wow. Meta got an upgrade today to 900 from Truist. And they got another upgrade to 900 from Stifel. 2 $900 upgrades today, and the stock's going red. You know what that tells me? That tells me the street is not that confident that Zucks is not going to screw them with a quarter where he spends like he did back in 2022. And I think the street's waiting for the earnings just to confirm that Zucks is not being reckless with the spend. Which, by the way, that was the narrative going into Q2, and they ended up beating earnings by it was 23%, and that narrative went away. But then they started hiring all these AI researchers for billions of dollars, and maybe that narrative's coming back. But Meta right there going red. Bitcoin also going red. You got a red candle on Biddy and Meta. EU investigation. Is there an EU investigation? Maybe that could be the headline. Not sure why crypto is going down. Oh, yep, here we go. The European Commission found TikTok and Meta in breach of transparency obligations under the EU's Digital Service Act, lacking adequate data access for researchers and failing to provide users with effective reporting mechanisms for illegal content. Okay, so the Digital Services Act in the European Union has been violated by TikTok and Meta. There's no implication on the fine that Meta would have to pay about this. Also, I mean, Meta has violated every single Data Privacy Act over the past 15 years. I don't know if that would be the narrative to hurt the stock, but that's why you're seeing that gut reaction of Meta going red. S&P also a bit of a red candle from 677 to 660 or 676. There it is right there. And then SoFi still trying to hold on to 29.50. Not sure why crypto's down though. Not sure why crypto's losing its steam. Yeah, Bitcoin officially going red. That's weird. That is weird. You got the S&P at all-time highs, and gold's going up, by the way. Gold was down a bit more at 930. Gold is now recovering some of those losses. So you got gold going up, Bitcoin going down, and the market's going up. Grindr is up 26%. Grindr received a non-binding $18 per share take private proposal. Okay, so Grindr, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. They did get a private equity firm say they want to buy them out. $18 per share is the proposal. That's why the stock is up 27%. That means there's some alpha. If you think the buyout happens at 18, you could buy it at 16, make $2 a share. Now, if the buyout doesn't happen, then you could be bag holding that. So you have to be careful there. But you do have some green. Thank you for the congratulations. I appreciate it. It's my first institutional takeover. Hoping to take over a lot more companies over the lifetime of building out my holding enterprise. So it does mean a lot. It does mean a lot. Intel, are we at 41? No, Intel loses 40. Okay, Intel loses 40, 39.80. Got Intel going down. Dell still up 2%. Tessie now, it's getting worse for Tessie. Robinhood's getting better for Robinhood. That's weird. Bitcoin's down, but Robinhood's up 5%. That is so weird. That usually is not how it plays out, but you got Robinhood moving much higher. Palantir is still holding up nicely at 3%. Opendoor back to $8. Opendoor hasn't seen $8 in about, well, let's see the last time. Last time they saw $8 was October 10th. Yeah, October 10th was that day that created a drawdown on a lot of these names. So basically 2 weeks, and now it's back to $8. That's up 14%. And then SoFi, 29.40. Rocket Lab, 65.31. I don't think there's a reason why Opendoor is up. I just think everything is up and momentum drawdown on a lot of, I mean, let's look at Oklo. Oklo, 134. That's up 8%. So Oklo now for the week is down 20%, but maybe that's the end of it, right? Maybe that's it. Now, that doesn't mean these stocks are necessarily cheap, even if the drawdown is over. But if the structural drawdown is not as aggressive, then maybe that's where they ended up bottoming out. Iran back to 61. Iran was at 74, fell all the way to 50, back to 61. The data center news last night was super bullish for Iran. So makes sense that Iran is getting up. Ford down 9%. Or sorry, Ford is up 9%, which makes sense. They beat their adjusted free cash flow as well by about $2 billion, which you don't see a company like Ford do often. Last time Ford was at 1346, July 2024. That's a big move on Ford. That's a big freaking move on Ford. 45 million shares of volume in the first 20 minutes. That is a pretty big move on Ford. There's the heat map, pretty much green. J&J's down a little bit, Walmart's down a little bit, and then Tesla's down. Netflix down. Everything else is holding up. There's Josh. Yeah, SoFi's looking for 30 again. That's correct. Do we have some statements from Canada? Prime Minister Carney, we can focus on new partnerships, including with Asia. Oh, they must be asking him about Trump's comments. Did he apologize? Is he going to bend the knee? We can't control trade policy of the U.S. Recognize U.S. policy has changed. Dude, are they actually beefing, bro? Are they legit beefing? Maybe Trump used that Reagan commercial as a scapegoat to like hide how much he's annoyed with Canada, and he used that as his reasoning. Look, based on these Canadian Prime Minister comments, it kind of looks like they are beefing a little bit. Nvidia's still green, which is weird because they were literally in the Oval Office 2 weeks ago laughing. And Trump was like, "This is a great man. He's a smart man." They were, the media was laughing. It was a very amicable press conference. It's kind of wild, bro. You're in the Oval Office with someone. You think you have a deal. You think you're nice. You think you can negotiate. And then 2 weeks later, you're fighting on Twitter. Like, that's been the story with Trump and a lot of these leaders over the past couple of months. Okay, so that one is causing a little bit of red, but overall, you're not seeing that much weakness from these comments. S&P is still holding 677. We are in those new all-time highs. Google, very close to 260. Very, very close to 260. It's High School Musical. Yeah, it feels like High School Musical. Feels like there's old clicks. AMD, 251. She hit 251. Wow, dude, what a day. What a freaking day. 680 on the S&P is going to have some resistance. You do have a decent amount of option flow coming in on it, though. White House Hassett advisor says negotiations with Canadians have not been going well. Negotiations with Canadians have not been going well. That's Hassett on Fox News just now. Okay, so that's why Trump tweeted what he tweeted. It's almost like when Trump tweeted about the soybeans and all this stuff and the rare earth exports. It was more so about him voicing his frustration with China versus him like trying to start a fight or anything. It seems like same thing with Canada. He's a bit annoyed at Canada, and that's why he's putting this stuff out. Robinhood 142. 142. Hassett also said the shutdown could drop GDP by 0.1% each week. We talked about this yesterday, but the reason the shutdown might last longer is because the debt ceiling negotiations are not anytime soon. Every other time we've had a shutdown, it's coincided with the debt ceiling negotiations. And so that's where, most reasonable senators come together and say, we should probably do something about this. You don't have that type of pressure this time. And as a result, that might not be the same reason for why we don't get negotiations. Open Door right there. Wow, 20% on Open Door. I don't see an Open Door headline. If anyone has one, let me know. I think this is more so just rate cuts and then, momentum from CPI. Maybe it's the potential Robinhood tokenization partnership. I mean, there's nothing confirmed on that, but people could be thinking there could be. But outside of that, you are getting a move right there. Yeah, there's no confirmation on a partnership, but you do have people potentially thinking there is a partnership. Open Door 833. NVIDIA still holding 1.8, Tesla potentially going below 439, and then SoFi 2946. All right, so what do we think? Are we out of the woods on momentum? Or momentum stocks? The meme stock ETF probably has to be up today. The meme stock ETF. Yeah, look at that, dude. It's up 5.9%. Do people think for the rest of 2025, a lot of these momentum names are out of the woods and they have some room to breathe without having to worry about getting hit? That is the until the China tweets. Yeah, literally, right? Dude, we still have negotiations into next week. I mean, we need to freaking hope that meeting with Xi does not have any issues. We need to, even Novo is green today. Look at that. We need to hope we don't have any issues with Xi. If so, I think we're in a much better situation. Or at least I would hope so. Stock draft. Let's take a look at that. What do we got going on? Matt's at 45. I'm back to 40. Steve's at 9. Tanner's at 24. Tanner was at 20 a couple of days ago, so that's a big move. And then Chris is at 10. So Matt's still nearly at 45. And I am at 40. Google, are we at 260? We are at 260, folks. 260 Dolores for the Googs. Please, Trump, do not ruin the holidays for the USA. Yeah, if we could just get a very normal holiday season with some equities going higher, that would be fun. I mean, dude, 7,000. Meta, by the way, going green again. 7,000. Is that in play? Is that in play for the S&P? Google 260.32. That's up 2.8%. Palantir 185. Robinhood 141. NVIDIA up 1.8. Again, dude, it's just like over the past 2 weeks, over the past 2 years, every dip has been a buy. Every single one has just been one of those, you got to buy. You got to take advantage of these opportunities. And the worst thing is, look, if you're a fund manager, as Tom Lee was saying, that hasn't performed and you didn't buy over the past couple of weeks, and now you FOMO into Google at 260, or you just have to buy higher. I mean, it's tough. It is a lot tougher. But that just is better for a lot more people as you compound some of the bullishness. I think we have some macro data. Let me pull this up and see what we have here.
Hi, Leslie. Indeed, just crossing the tape. These are October final reads to replace the mid-month read. And the mid-month read of 55 deteriorates to 53.6. 53.6. That will be the weakest level going back to May of this year. If we look at the current conditions, from 61 mid-month to 58.6, 58.
This is consumer confidence.
0.6 will be the weakest going back to, you're going all the way back to July of 22. July of 22 on expectation. Same, 50.3, and that is from 51.2, a big deterioration there. That would be the weakest going back to May of this year when it was under 50. Now let's get to the inflation data. The mid-month at 4.6 remains at 4.6. However, the 5 to 10-year read moves from 3.7 to 3.9, the warmest since June when it was 4%. We see that yields are back up, as Carl just pointed out. And do keep in mind, we settled at 401 last week on a 10, which means you're about unchanged for the week. We settled at 398 yesterday. We're up on the session. Same for 2-year. 2-year 346 last week, up 2. Yesterday it was exactly at 346. So we're down a couple there as well. Maybe the most important feature continues to be that the CPI data was cooler than expectations. The initial market move was lower yields and higher equities. As it sunk in, that were well above the 2% target. Rates came back, but we still see that the pre-opening equities held good, and the final equity markets are also way in the green. Mike Santoli, back to you.
Okay, so consumer confidence, Street wanted 54.5. We came in at 53.6. Again, they survey like a couple hundred people, so it's not the biggest important piece of data, but the Street's not reacting to it negatively. Google, 261. What's the market cap now of Google? That is another all-time high. Google, 3.1 trillion. Google has hit 3.1 trillion. NVIDIA is at 4.5. Apple's at 3.8. Microsoft is at 3.8. By the way, Microsoft and Apple, they're not that far away from 4 trillion. It is not that crazy to say on December 31st, we might have 3 $4 trillion companies at the end of the year. But you got Google right there moving 260. Consumer confidence not really affecting the market. AMD 251, trying to get to 252. And then S&P potentially going for 678. Potentially going for 678, which would be, again, another all-time high. Oh, this is pretty incredible today, dude. This is pretty incredible. 50.3 versus 51.2 on inflation index as well. Again, a bit lower than expected, but Street not caring too much. We got some option flow. Someone's buying the 75. Let me see. Someone's buying the $75 call for Hut 8 Mining, 1.8 million of it for January 2027. Someone just bought about 2 million of the Hut 75 call for January 2027. There you go. Hut right there, up 8% on the day. They have earnings in 11 days. So you got some this is another Bitcoin miner turned data center. You got more and more people feeling bullish on those. And then Google again, just below 261. Where is Nebius? Nebius 113.71. Intel's down, really? Intel loses it? Wow. Dude, Intel was at 41.50 yesterday. All right, so people are... Okay, so here's the question for everybody. Trim or no? Trim or no? Taking some profits or no? What are people thinking? What are people thinking? Letting the show go on, or maybe something you bought 2 days ago, UiPath up 3%. Is it worth shaving a little bit off if the market's giving you these types of chances? And if you did, let me know if you did. I see a couple of people saying yes. Too much for taxes. No reason to trim. Not till November. Trim Tesla at 450 at the open. Okay, that was not a bad sell. Not until earnings and rate cuts. Yeah, that's kind of my thesis on this as well. It was a similar question to what people are saying, when would you sell SoFi? It's like, well, earnings are on Tuesday, so not before earnings. And then you have the rate cut the day after. But that's not just specific to SoFi. That's every single growth stock. Like if they're going to have if you think they could have good earnings, like a Google, and then they're getting a rate cut as well. I think Google is after the rate cut. It's just like, what exactly is the super big logic to get out of the position? Man, now maybe you hedge a little bit by selling some calls or taking a little bit off the table, but those two catalysts are very important. S&P right there, 677. S&P 677. Trimmed some AMD. Trimmed a little bit of AMD above 250. Just takes a tweet to lose it all again. Yeah, and I think that's the thing that all of us are getting more used to. It's like today's a pretty euphoric day. as long as this continues, which, I mean, the momentum looks really high today. But it takes a tweet to get rid of it. And you would just hope that we're kind of done with some of those tweets. Yeah, no, we're seeing some pretty big moves, bro. This stuff is not easily going away. Julian, thank you, brother, for the super chat. I appreciate it. Shout out to Amit and everything he does for the community. I give you your flowers for giving your platform with so much integrity, not grifting like every other finance creator. You are a gem. Everybody drop a thank you for Amit for what he does day in, day out. He gives the value and energy he gives for free. Julian, appreciate you, man. Thank you for being here. You did not need to say that, but deeply, deeply appreciate you being here. I know today's probably a very fun day for your portfolio. We were looking at some of Julian's videos the other day, and October 10th, he was down like 5 million. A couple of weeks later, he was up 5 million. I would imagine he's up a decent amount today, but appreciate you, man. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, wow, that's a $540 super chat. Goodness gracious. I didn't even know. AED? That's the United Arab Emiratis. Wow. Dude, I appreciate that, man. Thank you. That's a big one. I deeply appreciate that. Thank you so much, man. Shout out to the United Arab Emiratis. Shout out to them. Thank you for the super chat. Yes, I know I said it wrong. Trolling. I'm trolling. Emirati sounds better though, right? That's the easier way to say it. Emirates. Emirates sounds like pirates, bro. Emiratis is like legit, bro. It's legit. I don't think anyone's ever sent a Durham super chat. United Arab Emirates Durham. Thank you, Julian. Appreciate you, man. Deeply, deeply appreciate you. And today's probably got to be a fun day for your portfolio as well. So thank you for being here. Robinhood right there, 140. We know Julian's a big Robinhood Palantir guy. Both of these names, massive, massive days on the day, up 2.4 and 4.7. You know, that's why I bought Hood at Palantir at 172. I mean, like, I know it's an expensive stock here, but I really do think they're going to give one of those earnings that could take this guy up to 200. And then if it gets to 200 and normalizes 200, I mean, I know it is expensive though. So same thing with Hood. They're all expensive. It's just if they could deliver some earnings and the macros in the right sector, you'd get some momentum here. 677 on the S&P. That is green. Julian, we are sorry this guy can't say your country name right. I was trolling. I wasn't trolling a couple days ago when I actually said Emirati, but I was trolling today. You're getting some green. You're getting some good green right here. SMCI, yeah. I mean, look, I don't think SMCI is crazy here at 49. They didn't really take away their guidance. They just pushed it back a quarter. So SMCI 47 yesterday also wasn't that bad. Corey right here, 130. That's up 6%. And then Coinbase, look at that, 6.7% move on freaking Coinbase as well. Suraj, thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you, man. Happy CPI day. Happy CPI day to all of us. Did a lot of people even remember we were getting CPI today? Because I didn't remember until it came out. I was like, oh, crap, it's Friday. CPI never comes out on a Friday, and the government shut down. But that thing just whipsawed all of us to the upside. Deanna, thank you for the super chat as well. Thank you for being here. Hoof, thanks for the super chat. Today is my birthday, and historically, it's a terrible day in the market, but today it is celebrating with all-time highs. Hoof, happy birthday. And what a birthday present with all-time highs. What a freaking birthday present with all-time highs. Amazing. Amazing, amazing stuff. Right, that's the best thing you could ask for your birthday, right? Like, there's no amount of money or gift that anyone could give you in your life on your birthday than the stock market on a new all-time high on the S&P, right? Like, there's just no gift that could compare, like, numerically other than the stock market hitting all-time highs for your birthday. S&P, she's going for 678. She's going for it. She is going for it. And maybe we're going to see some green. I see a lot of people saying they didn't remember CPI. A couple of you guys are saying yes. Yeah, I genuinely woke up and I forgot. It's just a Friday usually. Otherwise, I would have even been early because usually CPI, we do it 15 minutes early. But on a Friday, it just felt like it was all off. But it was a great surprise right here. 677.64 on the S&P. Unless you shorted the market. Yeah, that was not the best either. 10-year treasury, that continues to go a bit up. Are we green on that? Yeah. Oh, we're back above. We're just under 4%. So you got the 10-year inching up a little bit. Not that concerning, but nonetheless, you are seeing a little bit of that. Adam says, "Admit my birthday is tomorrow. Happy pre-birthday to you, Adam. Hopefully you enjoy it." Again, we got a lot of October babies. Shopify all-time high. Shopify. Wow, 173 on Shopify. Shout out to Austin. He's in the chat. He's been bullish Shopify for a long time. Shout out to Tanner. I think this is his second largest position, Shopify, from Canada. Also, Fix, HVACs. This company was up 15%. This is another one that Austin was talking about over the past couple of weeks. Apparently, HVACs matter when it comes to data centers. And that ended up being a growth momentum play for them. S&P right there, 677, and then AMD 250. SoFi up 5.2%. Nebius ripping higher as well. Look at that. Nebius 8.2. I think what the drawdown on the data center names kind of showed everybody is that if there is any level of fragility in the data center like narrative, a lot of these names are going to get hit really bad. But as soon as that narrative dies out, aka Oracle financing $40 billion of debt, you just need one headline to change everything. And the headline from Oracle was enough. And then boom, Nebius, CoreWeave, all these names, they're back to green. They are back to green. Yeah, BMNR is stuck, unfortunately, because Ethereum is not really moving. If Ethereum joins, this can really get fun. But both Ethereum and Bitcoin just not moving as much this month. Cypher, are we still moving on Cypher? Yeah, 12%. There you go. HIMS, where is HIMS? HIMS is back above 50. Okay. You're at least back above 50 on HIMS. Western Union, they did beat on the top and the bottom. Western Union is up 10%. You know, we talked about Western Union like a month ago. Someone brought it up, and I shared them speaking about the thesis. I think it might have been Josh Brown. Again, it's hard to invest in kind of the legacy financial infrastructure on money payments, but this one did have a decent earnings. By the way, speaking of Josh Brown, his latest pick that he likes is Zoom. Zoom up 2.4%. He's a fan of Zoom. He thinks that their enterprise business can get re-rated on a variety of different verticals. I think it's a little bit of a hard stretch to see it get re-rated, but maybe. Zoom's right there is at 84.89. Oh, yeah. He did say insiders were buying a ton of Western Union. Yeah, that was his thesis. I forgot. That's why I showed it. I remember that. I showed it because the insider buying was crazy. Yeah, look at that. August, a couple million worth of buys on Western Union. Zoom is not interesting. Yeah, I agree. I mean, look, Zoom is growing literally 2%. Like for them to really change that growth, which technically that's the bull case, right? If you're only going 2%, how hard is it to grow 5%, 10%? But still, it's like there's not as many use cases for the product, even though Josh thinks are more use cases, and you would have to see a lot more of those to get a change. Okay, I'm trying to find this Fundstrat quote. If anyone has it, let me see it. People are saying Fundstrat says correction in November. I think that might be Mark Newton saying that from a technical perspective, which is very possible because he was a bit more bearish 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I'm trying to see their exact prediction on that, but they potentially think we might get a correction going into November. I don't see the exact quote on it, though. Mark said it. Let me see. Was Mark live yesterday? Was Mark live? I gotta see. I gotta try to find it. Wasn't October enough? So Tom and Mark don't agree. No, I think they agree macro by end of year is going to be good, but they might think November is not the best. I'm curious to see why they think November, especially after this drawdown we got, why they think November could get hit. I'm not sure. I'm not sure right here. Let me see. I think, is this the video? Okay, let me pull this up. I think this might be it.
Thought of as being a big surprise, just given the overlapping nature of what we've seen, even though I do suspect that the move from the 10th last Friday into the 15th was very strong. We can have a little bit of choppiness near term and still be bullish. Where that changes, of course, is a move down under 65.50. So for those that are negative, that's really what you need to really have a concern. For now, a lot of this so-called rotation really isn't that negative, or doesn't need to be. And if anything, can still help S&P turn higher into the Federal Reserve meeting, or in the event that we would go sideways for another week, likely would start to turn up very sharply after Powell's speech in late October. Bottom line, I don't find a lot of reasons to be too negative, just given that this longer term trend has not shown any evidence of damage, specifically when we have stocks like Apple.
Okay, I think I have the exact video. Let me pull this up right here. Let's pull this up.
The market is going to close, Mark, in 2025. This is amazing what we're seeing.
I think we close at 7,000.
Okay.
I'm bullish for the next couple months. However, I do think that we're going to have a correction in November. There's several things that are a little bit of a problem. Technology has moved straight up, but the rest of the market has not. So the eco-weighted S&P is unchanged since July, no movement. Mm-hmm. Eventually, that needs to change. We need to see a broad-based move, or else the market is susceptible and vulnerable to a possible pullback. We also see that positioning and deal making is rapidly gone on the rise. Last month was the biggest month in U.S. M&A, mergers and acquisitions, in 25 years. It's amazing. But it's like, where has this been all this time? The market's already up 35%, and now people are all of a sudden turning the switch and starting to do deal making. To the bulls' credit, sentiment is still not all that optimistic. And I think that's a good thing for the market in general. But I do worry that breadth and momentum have started to slide a little bit. Technology has gone straight up. There's several pockets of speculation in the metals, in the Bitcoin miners, and the quantum stocks. But I don't think we can get too bearish just yet. So I think we have to stick with the trend, but recognize that we probably will get some type of a backing and filling, which I think starts at the end of October near 6,800. We pull back a little bit, and then you have to buy dips into the middle part of November for a big move to finish on a high note.
So they recorded this on October 16th. That's when the S&P was at 660. We did have, again, a bit of a choppy time since then. Now S&P's at 677. I don't think what he's saying is inconsistent with what they believe already, which is S&P end of year 7,000. He literally said 680 and then a drawdown that you buy the dip on. I mean, if we tap 680 by the end of October and then we have a drawdown in November, at least for the first couple of weeks, that would support his thesis, especially going into the earnings season, because then if you buy the dip on that, it sets up 7,000. Or we see the exact opposite. And the drawdown that did happen, 673 to 647, I think was the exact drawdown over the past couple of weeks. That is over. That is done. And we resume the uptrend. I mean, obviously, no one can predict this stuff, but he did say until mid-November, you might see that end up happening. And we're going to see overall, whether it happens on a technical retracement or whether it happens on something fundamental. If it ends up being a buy the dip, by the way, fear and greed right here at 34. So far, buying the dip has worked out. Across the board, buying the dip has worked out. Iran is up 10%. S&P still moving. And we're seeing a lot more. Yeah, he said correction. So he would be expecting, 5 to 7% if we do get that. Which, look, if we get to 6,800 and then we get a 5% correction, going into the end of the year, that's when a lot of people probably would be panicking, which is where I think they would be buyers. But especially because we're getting towards the end of the year. But I wonder if that's kind of ultimately how it plays out. Or was this the drawdown? I mean, this is what I asked in the morning, right? Did the drawdown happen? Did we live through the drawdown over the past 2 weeks where everything got wrecked? And maybe everything doesn't get back to exactly the all-time highs it was at. Maybe Hood doesn't get to 150 easily, but Hood back at 140 from 120 definitely took a lot of a beating at 120. So if it's not going back to 120, maybe it's not going back to 150 either, but staying in the middle at 140 is, I don't think people are too upset about that. NVIDIA right here, 184. Amcor, did we break 33? Amcor, nice, breaking 33, cool. There you go. Intel earnings definitely helps on that. Broadcom helps. Amcor right there, 33. Intel is down. Intel losing a lot of its momentum, so you got some sellers coming in. Then Broadcom, that's at 352. You could sell some aggressive calls on that. Yeah, I mean, if we do get a November hit, maybe that is not the worst thing. Yeah, Booz Allen Hamilton, dude, this was horrible. This was an absolutely disgusting earnings. By the way, Dougie, thank you for the gifted 5. Appreciate you being here, man. Thank you for the gifted 5 membership. Nick Hill, thank you for becoming a channel member. IC, thank you for the $20. Thanks for making investment entertaining and very informative every day. Keep up the good work. IC, thank you for being here. And Dougie, thank you as well for the gifted memberships. I was looking at Booz Allen Hamilton this morning. It really does feel like Palantir is eating their lunch. I mean, the report is kind of crazy, bro. The report is kind of crazy. They specifically said that they are losing key contracts. Take a look at this. Here's some quotes. The reacceleration of our business will take longer than expected, and we are lowering top and bottom line guidance for the year. This is the most bifurcated environment I've seen in my decade with Booz Allen. Our civil business is operating in the most challenging market in a generation. Almost 90% of our $7.2 billion in gross bookings in the quarter were from national security. Our focus on the civil business is to maximize our AI capabilities and commercialize our technology partnerships to reignite growth, AKA we are overly reliant on the U.S. government, and the U.S. government is not giving us as much of a deal or as much of a string of deals as we thought we were going to get, which is why we're lowering our guidance. And as a result, it's creating a more bifurcated environment. I mean, if that's not Palantir eating a legacy consulting firm's lunch, I don't know what is. I mean, this is Accenture, by the way, said basically the same thing. They have a little bit more Gen AI revenue to cushion some of the pain, but Accenture year to date down 30%. Booz Allen Hamilton year to date down 29%. I mean, all these consulting firms. We're kind of seeing the bloodbath of AI take some of the lunch from the white collar jobs, where a lot of other companies are realizing we don't need to pay consultants if we have something like an AIP. Like, why do we need consulting firms? And you might be seeing a little bit of weakness there. Tesla right there down 1.6. Palantir 184 that's green. I don't know if I would short Booz Allen Hamilton, especially down 30%, but in the beginning of the year, it definitely was susceptible to some of the problems with AI. Trump tweeted 2 hours ago, the stock market is stronger than ever because of tariffs. He tweeted that at 7:30. So Trump bullish on the markets right here. SoFi 29.41, still holding up green. Okay, we got some news from Amazon. Amazon says the AWS outage started because of a bug in its automation software where its AWS customers store their data, which then triggered more issues in its other systems that relied on their software. Okay, so a little bit of an update from Amazon on why things did not work out the best. By the way, Vlad also publicly commented on the AWS shutdown. So someone said, can we for a second appreciate how Robinhood took no responsibility for being down? However, it was Robinhood that decided to run from a single AWS region. And then someone said right here, I heard that even if you are multi-region, a bunch of internal AWS stuff depended on the East region anyway, and you were half borked either way. It was effectively a global AWS outage that made it so bad. And Vlad said this is accurate. So basically he's saying or implying that they had multiple distributed servers across the country. It wasn't just in one region, but because everything relies so much on US 1 East, that's why it wrecked pretty much everything else. which again, technically, Robinhood ultimately has responsibility, but maybe you can't blame Snapchat, Coinbase, Robinhood, Slack, all those companies themselves based on AWS. SoFi right there, 29.30. Amazon still at 223. Vlad should reply with, "Why are you gay?" Dude, see, this is the thing about Vlad compared to Elon. Like, Elon has FU money, and he also just doesn't care. And I mean, Vlad also has FU money, but Elon's just, Elon at 500 billion is different. Elon's telling the Secretary of Transportation, "Why are you gay?" for freaking not giving SpaceX the contract and opening it up to be multiple competitors. And it just like no other public CEO would start a beef with the guy that's supposed to give him the contract, but Elon doesn't care. Elon legit does not care. Speaking of Elon, by the way, who thinks that the video I'm about to play was Elon Musk?
And a friend of mine, talking about donors, a friend of mine, a man that's great. I'm not going to use his name unless he lets me do it. Susie can tell you about this, but he called us the other day and he said, "I'd like to contribute any shortfall you have because of the Democrat shutdown. I'd like to personally contribute any shortfall you have with the military, because I love the military and I love the country, and any shortfall, if there's a shortfall, I'll contribute it." And today he sent us a check for $130 million. You share who that is? I would love to tell you. He doesn't really want the recognition, if you want to know the truth. But he gave us a check for $130 million. And that's going to go to which was sort of a shortfall, yeah. And that's going to go to the military, yeah. And what's your message? And a friend of mine talking about...
That's crazy, right? There was a billionaire who gave Trump $130 million to pay the troops during the shutdown. I don't think it was CARP, because I think given how much they work with the government, I feel like there's too much controversy for him to make that type of donation. Then again, Elon also works heavily with the government with SpaceX. So, I mean, who knows? Dude? I think it's got to be someone who's worth many, many tens of billions. I don't know if you could be like if you could have a couple billion, if you can give away 130 million, I think you got to be at least 20 billion to be able to think of giving away 130 million. But that's kind of crazy, right? Someone agrees with Trump so much on this government shutdown that they literally paid for the salaries for the troops to the tune of 130 million because they wanted the shutdown to continue and for Trump to achieve his agenda. I mean, it's quite incredible. But he's got the connections to a lot of these business people, which is why this happens. Allison Palmer Lucky, it was not me. I can confirm it's not me. Yeah, CZ. I mean, CZ got a pardon yesterday in the crypto world. He's worth $80 billion, which, it's hard to potentially deny that. He did also just get a pardon. You got to also imagine someone had a little bit of a, like, hey, maybe it was fully altruistic, or maybe it was like, well, 130 million in the long term is going to pay me back later. Maybe. Tesla right there down 2.2. Tesla, one of the only names that's actually red on the day. GameStop a little bit, Disney a little bit, Intel holding 1%. Everything else, Duolingo even, is up 1.4. I don't think it was Triple V. I honestly, Larry Ellison to me seems like the easiest guess. But then again, I don't know. You got to have a lot of money and you got to be able to easily give it away. This is how you do government charity. Don't force the government to raise taxes if you believe in a program. Fund it yourself. Yeah, I mean, dude, you talk about people complaining about taxes and then boom, you got some people that are willing to just give away all this money. Now, granted, it could probably a tax write-off for whoever gave it away. So they are saving something on the back end. I feel like the best guess is around Ellison, Elon, maybe CARP, or some of those. I don't know if Joe Lonsdale is worth enough to give away 130 million. Again, I think you got to be worth 10 to 20 billion to be able to part with a couple percentage points of your entire net worth. Probably more than that. Like if you're worth 100 billion, 130 is like whatever. If you're worth 10 billion, 130 is still 130 million. Tanner says it wasn't me. Trump is mad at me. Exactly. Dude, Tanner, what did you guys do to piss off Trump like this, bro? You guys pissed him off. Absolutely freaking pissed him off. It was Ken Griffin. You know, Ken Griffin's not been the biggest fan of Trump. He's not like rah-rah. He's actually criticized the tariffs aggressively. So I don't know if it would easily be Ken Griffin. But it would have to be someone that has some money. Okay, let's get some updates right here on the crypto news we talked about. JP Morgan thinking of Bitcoin and ETH as collateral. Here's some coverage on what we have there.
JP Morgan's trading business has for a few months now accepted IBIT, the ETF, as a form of collateral, which it sees as less volatile as the underlying currencies. However, I'm told that certain hedge fund managers and asset managers are demanding more of these types of crypto services, although, again, I'm told that offering Bitcoin and Ether as collateral for trading is not imminent. While many remember JP Morgan Chairman and CEO Jamie Dimon's comments about Bitcoin being a pet rock, he's moderated his tone recently. Here's what he said when I asked him a few months ago about the firm's increasing overlap with crypto, including a Coinbase partnership and the stablecoin-like token JPMD.
I'm not against stablecoins, like a mutual fund, but mutual funds have rules. What are the rules going to be around stablecoins? And I think there are really, so I'm a believer in stablecoin, a believer in blockchain, not personally a believer in Bitcoin itself. But you're the customer. I don't like to tell customers what they can and can't do with their money. That is a whole different issue for us. And so we're going to accommodate those things. If the customers want to use it and how they use it and it's used properly, we'll be doing it. It's what the customer wants. It's not what JP Morgan personally wants.
JP Morgan declining to comment, but this is a space to watch because although it is early days and so far somewhat isolated to the trading group, it could ultimately, potentially, we'll see, expand to other areas of the business. They've got a very sprawling business, whether it's corporate or asset management or even consumer. But again, still early days here and reserved for that trading business, guys.
All right. IBIT and Ethereum ETFs looking like they will officially be collateralized. Guys, we're still holding some pretty good levels right here. S&P losing 677, but barely. Almost broke 678. If we even, again, 673.95 was the previous all-time high. If we even hold anywhere above that to close out the Friday, that would be nice. Google 260, close out even above 257. That'd be bullish. NVIDIA holding the 180s. Palantir holding 184. Robinhood, anything above 135, I think would be bullish. You're getting a lot of these names that are just holding on to levels that they were at a couple weeks ago. Not officially all-time highs, but still, still doing okay. Iran up 9, Cypher up 12. Yeah, you're getting these names, not really getting hit yet. We didn't really even have a 10:30. It's 10:30. Maybe we get through a 10:30 slam right now. Even look at the regionals. The regionals caused so much kerfuffle over the past couple of days about private credit. No one cares. Regionals are up. KRE is literally back to where it was the day the Zion's charge-off came out, and it tanked 9%. It's right back to it, up 12% in the past 6 months. Private credit's not the issue. AI CapEx not the issue, as per Oracle. Earnings so far not the issue. Tesla and Netflix not the best earnings, but definitely not some horrendous earnings. And again, Netflix would have beat if it wasn't for the Brazilian tax authority charge. And then CPI was better than expected. Where is the bear case? Now, the only thing I think we can point to is momentum drawdown, which again we talked about it, and that's not bear. The momentum drawdown was not bearish. That was healthy. It was healthy for Oklo to not be stuck at a $35 billion market cap, and now Oklo is back at what market cap is that at? 20 billion. Look, 20 billion is still aggressive for a company with no revenue, but it's not crazy. It might still be crazy euphoric, but it's not still crazy euphoric. That level of flush out, I think, was actually really healthy for the market to breathe a little bit and to have a move to go higher. With all-time highs, why is Verizon at year lows? Because, why would you buy Verizon when rates are coming down and growth is up, right? That's Verizon to me is you buy it to get yield and you buy it in case there's weakness in other, if we have a recession, people are not going to be trading on Coinbase. So Coinbase is going to get nuked, but people are not going to cancel their phone bill. So Verizon is not even just a hedge, but it's something safe to be in. But if people are trading Bitcoin on Coinbase, and Coinbase is getting more transaction volumes, then the cost of capital from an opportunity perspective being stuck in Verizon versus a Coinbase, I'm using Coinbase as an example, it's a pretty big opportunity cost. So a lot of those value names, they're not really going to catch a bid, especially on a day like this when CPI is better than expected. What do we think is the bear case? Because I think all of us need to kind of analyze that deeply. Again, AI CapEx, that's why AMD is going to the moon today. Oracle just showed there's more demand than expected. CPI, way better than expected. Not way better, but better, which is good. Earnings growth, strong. I mean, crypto's been relatively flat, but I also think that's kind of bullish because they should be coiling up and setting up for a good end of year. And then momentum drawdown names, even if they don't continue to draw down, they're not at all-time highs anymore. And so you just, and a lot of that liquidity probably left some of those names. I mean, Dougie is a prime example. Dougie took some quantum profits. He's probably going to deploy some of that money into an Amazon or something, right? Or into something else. And so those other names that are a bit more fundamental, they might get some of that liquidity, and that could continue to get those to go higher as well. Bear cases, inflated revenue, everyone passing money around. I feel like that's a macro AI bear case. I'm thinking more so like structurally what gets us to take a big hit. Also, I didn't even mention the China stuff it's not resolved, but like it's definitely not escalated over the past 2 weeks. Any good news we get from China, good news we get from Russia, Ukraine, we already have the pseudo peace in the Middle East stuff that has been at least relatively tame over the past 2 weeks. All of those are tailwinds again for the end of the year. Doug says, admit that's exactly what I did. I bought a bunch of Amazon. Yeah, took 6 figures of profits from names that were a bit more momentum driven and threw it into something that has done nothing all year like Amazon. Like, I feel like a lot of people over the past 2 weeks did that. I think a lot of people took some profits and maybe they took some of those profits because they just didn't know where the bottom was. Retail psychology takes over when something's down 30% in a week. You get a lot of people that are like, dude, I'm up a lot. I should probably take some off the table and then redeploy. And I think if that's taking place, then it only adds to more bullish momentum. And it continues to prove that retail, is not just stupid money buying stupid stuff. It's like, no, retail is able to take profits and put money into different areas, which is important. AMD 252. Wow. Is that a new all-time high? Dude, it's about to go to, no, we covered 252. It's about to go for 253. Let me check resistance and see if we are getting 253. China also not horrible today. Geopolitical risk. Yeah, that is usually always there. I'm just trying to think by end of year, how do we not have a market that's higher? Is my question. 253 resistance, 13,000 shares. Not a lot. 13,000 shares. There might be a shot. There might be a shot. Trump tweeting. Well, that's always the potential bear case as well. Flowwave, thanks for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. Matthew says, hit my SOXL price target I said in April, 8 to 44. Thanks for the help, Amit. Wow, 8 to 44. Congrats, dude. This is leveraged, triple leveraged semiconductors. 8 to 44. Incredible. Absolutely incredible. Not bad. Not bad at all. Doug says, I'll be looking for a re-entry into quantum as well. It's too necessary and transformative. I mean, look, that's also a fair point. If there are opportunities to re-get into some of the quantum names that have lost their all-time highs, maybe those opportunities become a lot more attractive. The quantum names also, on earnings, maybe they also, look, maybe on earnings, the expectations are low and they come out with some really good numbers along with all the general sentiment that Elon and Sundar are talking about quantum, and that helps it out. It's just a question of where this industry likely is going. And then again, I don't think we can undermine, if the U.S. actually backstops the quantum companies, like they're probably not going that much lower. I mean, like I know the revenue multiples are extremely aggressive, but if Donnie T's on your side, just like with Intel, you're going to have institutional support. Question is, what is the best entry price? And that I don't know, because these names still are up 3,000-4,000%. You might just have to wait to get a good opportunity. Archer right there, that's up 3%. Verizon's up 1%. Dell's up 3%. And then Lilly, that is also 1% up. Tabitha says, Amit, thank you for these morning live streams. I watch it while I day trade to keep up with the news. It's super helpful. Tabitha, thank you for being here. Appreciate you being here. I love doing it every day. Oh, I announced this yesterday on the market close, but so my birthday's on Monday. Everyone's been asking, can we do a birthday stream? We're going to do the market close, and then towards the end of the close, we're going to do not like a birthday stream, but it's just after we're done with the market close, we'll do like a birthday segment, and I'm going to get a bunch of pictures from when I was a kid in high school, all these like random memories that I have, and we can do like a little bit of a photo album session for the birthday. I'm also doing a giveaway, so we're gonna be giving away some money. I've always liked giving away stuff on my birthday and kind of just giving back to everybody. So we'll do that on Monday as well. And I got the idea because I was on Facebook the other day for the first time in like a month, and I was scrolling through all these old pictures, and I was like, dude, this is kind of wild. Like 28 years old, you have all these memories. I was like, maybe we compile some pictures and I can show everybody some stuff from the rest of my life. I never had braces. I actually never had to deal with braces, which was nice. Tess says, baby pics, yes. Dude, I was a cute baby. I was a cute baby. Like, I was like, you know how some babies are ugly? I was not an ugly baby, bro. I remember my mom told me the doctor didn't want me to go home. Like, she was like, this is the cutest baby ever. You got to leave him in the hospital. So you guys are going to see. I was a cute little baby. What happened? You sound like my sister. She makes that joke every time. Dude, my sister she figured out a way to convince me that I was adopted. I think I was like 7 years old. I was crying. I ran up to my mom and I was like, Didi says I'm adopted. Didi's like the Indian way to say big sister. And my mom had to look me in the face. She's like, you're not adopted. I'm like, but she keeps saying I'm adopted. She's like, you're not freaking adopted. Like, shut up. It was hilarious, bro. There you go. You got my uncle in the chat. He says, I can vouch for that. He wasn't an ugly baby. He was holding me in 97, 98 when he used to come home from school. And he was, I think he was getting a CPA around that time, I think, if I'm not wrong. He was in accounting school. He would come home. And he would play with me when I was, 10 months old, 12 months old. I was a cute baby, bro. I was a cute baby. He didn't say you were cute either. Yeah, he didn't say I was not ugly. He didn't say I was cute. Can't we all just get drunk? Dude, it's a Monday. If my birthday was on a Saturday, it'd be different. It's a freaking Monday, bro. I got to do the market close or market open on Tuesday. So I don't know if we can get drunk. Who knows? Maybe we'll get a little drunk. I don't know, but it is a Monday. Where's gold and silver? Are we still moving gold and silver? Oh, wow. Look at gold and silver. Gold recovering everything. Look at that. Gold is down 0% on the day. Wow. Gold getting the full recovery. Gold not stopping. CopX as well. Copper miners. This one was down about $3 from these prices 2 days ago. That one getting a little bit of recovery, 60.70. So maybe the commodities kind of getting back to what they were doing before. SoFi still trying to break through 30. Still trying to break through 30. Siege, goodness gracious, bro. I'll be drunk enough for the both of us on Monday. Siege, never change, bro. Never change. Next meetup, you gotta be the exact same way. Gotta be the exact same way. I loved it. I loved seeing you in Miami, bro. I didn't drink in Miami, but I was happy that you drank. I was happy that everyone else had fun. But it was cool to see everyone just like so messed up, but still so happy to like connect with people. AMD 252, S&P again trying to break 678. Let's see what other headlines we have. Oh, we got a Tom Lee clip. Hold on. Let's pull up Tom Lee. He did a new podcast. This is a Bitcoin prediction from Mr. Tom. Let's see.
Wanted to understand the use case for Bitcoin, and there's many, but they're not too. They don't have a lot of conviction around something. To me, I could say easily it should supplant gold, and so I think Bitcoin should be, over 1 million over time, and then I kind of prescribing to the view that there's probably a chance that maybe the 4-year cycle is ending for Bitcoin because of the way institutional adoption of that thesis is taking place. And so you have institutional and essentially permanent holders of Bitcoin coming in. So it should be good. I mean, so I think Bitcoin should really build upon this 120 before the end of the year. So, 200,000, maybe 250. If someone wanted to
All right, so he's still saying 250. He is still saying 250, bro. I mean, I don't know, guys. I don't know if we're seeing 250, but if it does happen, that would be fun. It would definitely help a lot of these different assets. I mean, we've seen crazier things in crypto, right? For things to make the moves that they have made. It's just, we're going to have to see how that plays out. Here's another clip of Tom yesterday with Pomp talking a bit more about crypto.
I've now there's like 7 or 8 gold stable coins. Yep. Plus, there's big stable coin issuers. And so that could be the bid to gold. Now, does that mean gold is unlimited on the upside? I don't know. I mean, I'm not studying it, so I don't know. But I think it's very bullish for Bitcoin and Ethereum because
why?
Well, gold moves first and then Bitcoin catches up. So I think that there is going to be the network value of gold just went up by a lot. And so let's say gold settles at 5,000. That puts fair value of Bitcoin, like 1.6 to 2 million if it matches gold's network value. So I think it's actually helping Bitcoin's future terminal price.
So you think that if gold settles at 5,000, Bitcoin, you take the gold market cap divided by the number of Bitcoin, then you get 1.6 to $2 million per coin. What's the time frame for us to get there?
Well, I mean, I can see that in 5 years for Bitcoin. So I think
5 years.
Yeah. I think Bitcoin. Yeah, I think Bitcoin doesn't get capped by gold. It actually gets pulled up by gold.
And then,
because it's growing the monetary base, right?
And then this year, gold's up 60-ish%, Bitcoin's up 18 to 20%, depending on the day. Do you think that on December 31st of 2025, we'll actually look back and could Bitcoin have outperformed gold in 2025, even though it has such a big lead right now?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of time. We have 10 weeks. As you know, Bitcoin makes its move in 10 days a year. So are Bitcoin's best days in the fourth quarter? Probably, because we have catalysts, the Fed's easing. We have a shutdown that's been risk off. We have China-US tensions that, look, every time there's a headline on China, like Bitcoin takes a gut punch, right? Because it is money flows and deleveraging. So that goes away. We have seasonality that favors stocks moving up. Stocks moving helps Bitcoin. So to me, the chances of Bitcoin having a huge fourth quarter are really high. And not all of these would be tailwinds for gold. So I wouldn't count. I still think it's possible for Bitcoin to hit 200,000 by the end of the year.
I don't know, guys. What do you think? Tom Lee saying 10 weeks. That's a lot of time. I mean, he's right. In crypto terms, that is a lot of time. I can't wrap my mind around 200,000, dude, by end of year. If that does happen, I mean, because the reason I can't wrap my mind around it, the actual reason has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It has to do with the implications on Robinhood. If Bitcoin is at $200,000, I mean, Robinhood's pushing minimum 175 to 180. the transaction volumes alone. It would be like $1 billion revenue quarter on crypto alone. So we're talking about $1.8 to $1.9 billion of revenue. And like, that doesn't make sense to me. I can't see that happening. But if that does happen, like Coinbase is going to $500. Like MicroStrategy is going way past 550. Its previous all-time high. Like the amount of pump we would see. And by the way, Ethereum always lags behind Bitcoin, right? So if Bitcoin's at 200,000, I mean, Ethereum's got to be somewhere near 8,000 to 9,000, right? Even if it's at 7,000, then BitMine's at freaking probably 75, 80. But like the implications of what he's saying is so gigantic that it's hard for me to see it happen. And by the way, he's not backing down from it. He's not saying like, oh yeah, we're getting close to the end of the year. He's like, no, 10 weeks is plenty of time. He's like, yeah, we're fine. We'll be good. And so if it does happen, I mean, that's a big call by Tom Lee. No, I get everything you're saying. Bitcoin's a worldwide asset. Bitcoin's move happens within 9 to 10 days. I get it. But a $90,000 candle to end out the year, even if it is within a couple of days, like that's massive, bro. I would not complain about that. It's just if it does happen, it would be quite incredible. And, you know, we have rate cuts coming too. Like if Tom Lee was saying 130, 140, I'm like, okay, like because you could see that. But he's going for the jugular. He's going for 200. And, you know, he's no stranger to giving out price targets. He's been giving out price targets for 35 years as an analyst. So he knows what it means to, you know, make a price target and stick with your call or readjust your rating. And he's sticking with it. He is sticking with it. Struvosky, thank you for the $50 super chat. I've been following you since 22. In my opinion, you've become one of the top creators in the space. You create so much value for us here every day. Thank you for your dedication and showing up every day. Much respect, mate. We appreciate you. Love from Aussie. Struvosky, thank you. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Hopefully we can have a great end to the year for all of us. And yeah, it's been awesome, dude. It's been an awesome community over the past 3 years. And I think the meetups next year, we can take it to the next level and, you know, really do this in a fun way. And yeah, I want to make it fun. I want to make it really fun. I want to get the mods to show up to the meetups as well. I think there might be a world where every new city we go to, a couple mods can be there, because it was really nice to have a bunch of mods in Miami, just because A, it helped me a bit, and also B, like, you know, they were able to incorporate and make people feel welcome, and it really felt like the chat was in person in Miami. And so if we could replicate that in every city we go to, that'll be really fun. So we're gonna try to do what we can do. We're going to try to do what we can do. S&P 676. That is also green. Were they modding conversation in person too? Yes, they were banning people. If you were bearish HUD, they would ban you immediately in person. You're like, you got to get out of here, bro. You got to get out of here. If we do UK, you know Tess is going to be there. You know Tess is going to be there. Tess is going to be there, and she will be hosting a quantum seminar at the meetup. That's what's going to be happening. There will be a meetup, and then there will be a quantum seminar in the meetup. I'm so serious too. This is what happens. Like, if you you don't have to be a mod to do this, but if you're like an expert in a certain thing, like you end up talking about it at the meetups. And I've literally seen 10, 15 people in a circle with Adam was like, there were 30 people with him, and he was talking about how to sell puts. For like a good 50 minutes, he was sitting with 30 people and he was talking about selling puts, answering questions, all that stuff. So if we go to the UK, I'm sure Tess will be there, and she will get you drunk as well. That's the other thing. She'll be talking about quantum for 5 hours while she'll be drinking and talking about quantum at the same time, and it'll almost be like she's not even drunk when she talks about it, but she will make sure you get drunk. Because her tolerance is something. I mean, like, I know the Brits can drink, but she's a different type of Brit that can drink. She's a different type of Brit that can drink. I need an excuse to go to the UK again. Yeah, hopefully it becomes an excuse for everyone who wants to go on vacation. It was an excuse for a bunch of people to come to Miami. And that's why it was fun. Beepster, thank you for the 100 super chat. Hi, man. Thank you for all you do for the community. Ever since I moved to Southeast Asia, it's been hard to keep up with the market closes. Have an early birthday present on me. Hope to celebrate many more with you in this great community you have fostered. Beepster, thank you, man. Thank you for being here. And congrats on the move to Southeast Asia. I know the timing is definitely a bit different to catch these market opens and the closes, but thank you for the happy birthday wish and appreciate you being here every day. AMD right there, 251 still holding it. Google 259. We're not getting any crazy headlines. Oh, do we have a China headline? No. No China headline. I thought we almost... No, we do. China embassy says... This is hilarious, bro. The China embassy just came out and says the United States is the world's #1 hacking state. The United States is the world's #1 hacking state. Why? Like, first of all, it's hilarious because the amount of hacking the Chinese have done is like, if you go down the rabbit hole, and then the North Koreans, go down, type in North Korea, Sony hacking on Google. You are going to go down a rabbit hole to see what the North Koreans did. But the Chinese embassy says the NSA case is self-evident that a real Volt Typhoon operation looks like the U.S., and therefore the U.S. is the #1 hacking state. That's weird. I'm not sure what motivated them to say that today. But there you go. Yeah, they're basically, the U.S. has hyped up the so-called China cyber threat theory, coerced other countries to stir up Chinese hacker attack incidents, sanctioned Chinese enterprises, and prosecuted Chinese citizens to confuse the public and distort the truth. Gotta love the CCP, bro. Gotta love the CCP. All right, well, I don't think that's enough to give us a red candle. I mean, markets are still kind of holding up. SoFi right there, 29.12, S&P 676. We are the #1 state to get hacked. Yeah, we've been hacked a lot more than before. Trump is going to be pissed. Watch Trump respond. And he's like, actually, the Chinese cannot hack any of our infrastructure. Has he tweeted yet, Trump? No, the last tweet he had was the stock market is stronger than ever before because of tariffs. Yeah, you're not seeing any other crazy headlines. It's 11 a.m. already? Dude, it feels like it's barely 10 a.m. Bank of England probes data center lending amid AI bubble fear. Okay, so the Bank of Lending looking into a inquisition of how much data center lending is going on. It makes sense. They're a bank. They want to make sure their results are going to be okay on these loans. No Trump tweet. Yeah, I don't think we're getting anything too crazy. As long as we don't have anything towards the end of the day, I think maybe we get to hold on to this. Grindr is up 25%. Again, acquisition offer at 18. Well, it was up 25. Now it's up 20%. There is an arbitrage there. If you think they go private at 18 and you buy at 15.30, you can make some money, but they actually do have to go through with the deal for that to play out. Mexican president says we're going to wait when asked about decision to terminate trade talks with Canada. Well, look, the Mexican president has had a really good track record with Trump over the past couple months in terms of negotiations. I guess, he's more upset at Canada today, but we're going to have to see if that ends up resulting in any pain with Mexico. Beyond Meat continuing to get to lows of week now, as that one is down another 7% on the day. See, so Beyond Meat was also a momentum stock, but unlike the quantum names and Oklo and nuclear, a lot of those kind of found their bottom, right? And that's why they've recovered. Like D-Wave is still down for the week, but it's up 6%. So, maybe it found its bottom at 26. I don't know if freaking Beyond Meat is finding any type of a bottom. I mean, this is just 750 to 260. Like, who comes in and buys it at 260 and reverses it back? Especially now that the shorts are winning, right? The shorts were losing on the squeeze and now they're winning. There are some momentum names that just might completely draw out. Intel almost red. That one also continuing to get a hit. Intel 3830. All right, let's see some of the other stuff we have. Shutdown update. Well, we listened to Trump. We listened to Mike Johnson. Let's listen to the other side. I mean, let's see what the Democrats are saying here and if there's any perspective on what could change. Here is Hakeem Jeffries. And here is his take on the shutdown.
And enacted the largest cut to Medicaid in American history, but refused to consider extending Affordable Care Act tax credits that actually benefit working class Americans, everyday Americans, and middle class Americans. Their priorities are misplaced. And as Democrats, we're going to continue to fight for the American people all across the country, in rural America, urban America, small town America, the heartland of America, and of course, black and brown communities throughout America, all of whom are being devastated by this Republican healthcare crisis.
Leader Jeffries, we were just joined by Senator James Lankford from Oklahoma. He's a Republican, and his concern with this was that the ACA subsidies aren't helping bring costs down overall. He said that in his state, Oklahoma, if you look over 6 years from 2013 to 2019, premiums for ACA plans were up by 200% versus premiums being up by 29% for commercial plans in his state. His concern is that there's something that needs to be fixed within this. Some of the things he threw out would be things like limiting fraud by just requiring that there be at least a $20 premium or some premium that's put down instead of zero premium so that people get enrolled in things without even knowing that they're enrolled in some of these programs. What do you say to that?
We've made clear in the House that we will consider anything that emerges from the Senate in good faith in a bipartisan way that both reopens the government while at the same time addresses this healthcare crisis and extends the Affordable Care Act tax credits in a meaningful way. The 90% or so of the people who benefit from these Affordable Care Act tax credits make $63,000 per year or less. And a significant number of small businesses and entrepreneurs across the country rely upon the Affordable Care Act tax credits in order to provide health insurance for themselves and for their families. So this is an issue that needs to be addressed. In fact, we know that red state residents actually are disproportionately higher represented in terms of the Affordable Care Act tax credits than any other part of the country. And so we're fighting for.
Same argument that Bernie made yesterday. Again, their argument here is that the Republicans are more in jeopardy of losing health care than the Democrats, because the ACA subsidies extend to a lot more Republicans. So, their argument here is that if we don't do this, Republicans will get hurt more. Obviously, Mike Johnson and the other people disagree. I don't know, dude. I don't know if we get any level of meaningful negotiation on this. This has been bad. This is now 23 days, guys. 23 days we've been stuck on this shutdown. It almost feels like there is no shutdown because how the market has not cared, but there is. And eventually you would imagine there are some impacts that we're going to see. But I do wonder if this ends up getting resolved anytime soon. S&P still holding strong, 676.67. AMD 252. Yeah, 23 days, right? It went fast. It's almost like the shutdown was announced yesterday, but it's been 23 days. You do have some red candles. Google losing 260, AMD losing 252. SoFi tried to break 29.50, got up there a little bit, now back below. Hoodie 142 to 137. I mean, you do have some red, but nothing as crazy. Yeah, it was 35 days in 2018. So we do have a ways to go to get there. Oh boy, Kramer just tweeted Pounter next stop 200. Goodness gracious, bro. If Pounter gets a red candle. There you go. Of course. Mr. Kramer. Why can't he just let us live, bro? Why does he always have to every time? Speaking of the Chinese hacking, this is a Trump clip of him talking about China hacks.
Hacked and they hack into our telecom system. They've been stealing intellectual property. They fentanyl, COVID. I mean, all of this stuff. So how do you negotiate with obviously a bad actor and trust them on economics?
You don't think we do that to them? We do.
So
we do a lot of things.
That's the way the world works?
It's the way the world works. It's a nasty world.
And then you just do a trade deal?
We do. Well, we made a lot of money with this trade deal. I do a trade deal if it works. We made a lot of money with the trade deal.
Hacked and they hack into our telecom.
All right. So Trump basically saying, look, we have to fight them. They have to fight us. And there's not much we can do. Here are the clips from Hassett and what he was saying this morning around shutdown and a couple other things.
Right. Well, the measure of the effect is, first of all, the 750,000 workers that aren't getting their paychecks. It's really disruptive for their lives. And that disruption is happening because of the Schumer shutdown. We want the Democrats to open the Senate, and then we're happy to talk with them about any policy they want to talk about. But the actual GDP effects are starting to be seen but we just have high frequency data that's not government data. But we expect that it's going to reduce GDP by about 0.1% for every week that it's shut down.
Okay, well, that is pretty wild. 0.1% for every week the government is shut down, and then this is more about talking about the deficit.
The bottom line is the markets are responding not because they think inflation is going up, but because they believe, as we know is true, that inflation is headed in the right trajectory. And here's what I would like to say about that if you go back and look at the history of the Biden administration, then what people are going to say is that Biden's runaway deficits caused the biggest inflation spike basically we had since the 70s. There's no dispute about that, really. Well, why is inflation going down now? Well, it's because President Trump's policies are set. We just did the calculation to reduce the deficit by $600 billion this year alone. And that's because we've got Laffer curve effects, so tax revenue is up about $200 billion. We've cut discretionary spending already this year by about $200 billion, and we've got the tariff revenue. And so we're doing the exact opposite of what Biden did to feed inflation. And so, of course, inflation's going down.
Okay,
that's the only way it could go. The bottom line is the markets are...
All right. Hassett seems pretty bullish on inflation coming down and the deficit coming down as well. I mean, look, if the government continues to be shut down and we're losing 1/10 of GDP every week, a lot of that GDP being contributed by the government, that is not going to be good for our numbers. But the question is, does this end up lasting as long as it did back in 2018? Is Clover squeezing? COLV? Oh, yeah, maybe got a little bit of a squeeze right here. Clover was one of the OG stocks in 2021 that ended up squeezing hardcore. This was one of Chamath's first SPACs. It's not a massive short float, only 13%. But maybe getting a little bit of a squeeze on the day. I think that's it, guys. I don't think we have that much else going on. We don't have... CPI was the big news of the day. We got that headline, pumped up the markets, S&P all-time highs. Unless the Canada tweet no one cared about. And then CPI was kind of the main story. The Oracle news from yesterday, massive for the data centers. I think that's why Cypher, Iran, all those are getting some love. But realistically, CPI set up a pretty good week going into a rate cut. And then next week's a big week for earnings. I mean, next week is your big week. Next week, you have SoFi, PayPal, UPS, Etsy, Shell. Is this correct? Are Microsoft, Meta, and Google all on the same day? Hold on. Is that correct? Microsoft earnings. Are they all on Wednesday, bro? That would be crazy. The calendar I'm looking at, yes. Bro, hold on. That day is going to be insanity. We have to cover Microsoft, Meta, and Google on the same day. And you have Starbucks, and you have Chipotle, and you have ServiceNow, and you have Coca-Cola, and you have Carvana, and you have Mercado Libre. And then Amazon and Apple are on that. Usually there's a break between Microsoft, Meta, and Google. Dude, that day is going to be insane. All right, folks, whatever you're doing, clear out Wednesday the 29th. Clear out Wednesday the 29th. That is going to be madness. That's actually going to be wild, dude. Yeah, there's no break for me. Not that day. Not that day. Amazon and MicroStrategy the day after with Apple. And then the Fed decision the day before. Wait, no, the Fed decision is in the morning, right? Oh, yeah, the Fed decision is the... Dude, so the Fed cuts in the morning, and then Microsoft, Meta, Google report in the afternoon. Dude, that is going to be wild. The 29th is your birthday. Well, a couple of you guys have a birthday on the 29th. All right. Dude, imagine the S&P just rips. Imagine... Okay, I'm just saying, like, imagine we get like a 7,000 push on that day. Like, imagine the earnings are so good and the rates are down. Like, it would be wild. I don't think that would happen, but it could be a pretty crazy day. Shout out to Chris. He just tagged me in this chill Friday morning, watching Amit cover the markets with my V1 Rocket Lab mug that apparently got an upgrade in the new shop refresh. Dude, that's awesome. Look at that. That is so cool. Doug says, I'm taking that day off of work. Not like I do anything at work anyway. Yeah, no one will be able to focus at work on a day like that. It is so cool to see you guys tag how you watch the show. Like, I love seeing that just because it's really cool from my perspective to see that. I mean, someone was literally drinking milk. Shout out to Bob while watching me and Steve yesterday. I don't get how you guys like milk. I guess Steve has brainwashed everyone into drinking ice cold milk, but there you go. So super cool stuff. I think that is it for today. Yeah, maybe it's an all day stream that day. We haven't done an all day stream in a while. I think it's been a year since we did a full on all day stream. Actually, that's not true. May 2025 we did do. I remember we did one in May because I remember by the end of it I was dead. We ended at like 9:30 p.m. But maybe we do that on Wednesday. All right, so there we go. I think that's it for today. Chris, thank you for that. Again, S&P making even a little bit of a push right here to 678, but overall been a pretty awesome day. And if we can just continue this towards the end of the day, then it would be very fun. Would be very fun. Ignacio says, first time I hit 20K. Congratulations. Incredible. This is one of those days that's creating probably a lot of moves for a bunch of people in the port. We'll do year to dates at the end of the week or at the end of the market close, but I think a lot more people are up from where we were last week. We were barely holding 665. Now we're trying to get back up to 678. There you go. Okay, let's do word of the day, and then we're done. We'll go to ChatGPT, and we will get our word of the days. What do we got? Bro, how, like, don't tell me anyone can easily say that. Don't tell me anyone can easily say that. Susurrus, a soft whispering or rustling sound. Susurrus?
Susurrus.
Of course, susurrus. Why not? A soft whispering or rustling sound like leaves swaying in the wind or distant murmurs of a crowd. The susurrus of the ocean at night made it impossible to tell where the waves ended and dreams began. Yeah, it seems sus to me, bro. I've never heard this word before. A soft whispering or rustling sound. Amit, that's legit the second word you learn in school after cat. Yeah, apparently. Apparently. I've never heard this word before, but there you go. There you go. That is our word of the day. And we are done for this Friday morning. We are officially done for this Friday morning. Thank you, Mitt. How do you feel about almost 10,000 people watching every single day? Look, first of all, I mean, thank you to everyone who's been showing up. It has, I think it's, we've been getting to that 10,000, I think, for the past couple of weeks now. It's really cool, dude. It's really cool. I was talking about this yesterday on the market close, just reflecting on it. It's just been an incredible journey. It's been awesome. It's, you know, I think I was talking about this with Tanner as well the other day. Because Tanner doesn't do a market open, market close, but he's been growing his live streams as well every day. And there's not that many people in the financial space that go live every day, multiple times a day. There's really a handful of people, so it is a little bit of an isolated space. But I don't know. I don't think that the number necessarily, and really, honestly, the numbers never had an impact in terms of live viewers. Like, it's something you pay attention to, but it's not something you obsess over, or it's not something that necessarily changes like who you are, like for the people that were here when there were 40 people in 2022, it really is the same energy. And that's the reason I think people continue to come back, because that energy is something that they're attracted to every day. But I mean, you do have a lot more people that have a lot more opinions, and you have to deal with, when you say something in a lot more ways, because there's just so much more of a magnitude of feedback that's going to come your way. And that you just gotta, learn how to deal with it over the long term. But I'm deeply appreciative. It means a lot. I think we built a real community, and I think the numbers are more validation that the people that show up live every day care about that community. They want to be part of that community. Not everyone has to agree in that community, whether it's a political belief or a belief on a stock. But as long as everyone respects each other in the community, that's the most important thing. And it's fun, dude. You get to wake up every morning and all of us get to be together every single day. Like, that's like, it's something I don't take for granted at all. As the S&P is trying to break all-time highs again, it's something I do not take for granted. And I just want to find more ways to give back, like literally with actually giving back money and prizes and stuff, just like ways to like constantly just show how thankful I am for this, but also with the meetups, because I think that's the most fun stuff. So we will be doing giveaway on my birthday. I asked if I should give away something physical, but people said cash instead. So we'll just do cash, and maybe we'll try to do. We'll do something going into Christmas. We'll do I don't know, like giving away a MacBook or something like that. We'll do something like that going into Christmas. But we'll do cash for the birthday, and then the meetups hopefully can continue to just consolidate this entire community as well. By cash, I mean Venmo or PayPal, basically. But yes, we'll do cash. Like with your family, I don't agree with my sisters. I'm right, they are wrong. Yeah, pretty much. Pretty much. My sister did ask me the same question the other day, though. She was like, because my sister is much more sensitive than I am when it comes to just dealing with feedback and stuff, and even at her job, if she gets negative feedback, it's stuff that affects her mentally and emotionally. And so she was like, how do you deal with just people throwing their opinions at you every day and saying this, saying that? And I'm like, you gotta isolate yourself to also understand that a lot of stuff that people say is just people saying stuff, including myself. People say whatever they want to say, right? People will always say whatever they want to say. It cannot be something that it cannot be something you lose sleep over. It really can't. And it should only be something you lose sleep over if you think that what they're saying is so accurate or so right, or you've done something so wrong. And but if you're just being yourself, you're not perfect, but people can say whatever they want to say. It's at the core. Are you building something real? Is there something legit? And do people understand that? And I think the numbers of the viewers every day is just the validation of that more than anything, even if not everyone will always agree. First Trillionaire, thank you for the super chat. Just went through a breakup. These streams really help with the emotional turmoil. Honestly, though, really grateful for the community here. See, these are the comments that mean the most to me, because content, I think, is a form of escapism as well. And whether it's a live stream or whether it's a Netflix show, anything that can be that form of escapism, especially because everyone's going to go through some shit in life, whether it's a breakup or anything, right? And you're always going to need some level of community, whether it's physical or whether it's online, to kind of navigate through that. Because life is hard. Life is tough. I think that's one thing we all forget. Life is tough, bro. We all forget that shit. That's wow, S&P. Well, life's not that tough when we're breaking all-time highs on the S&P. There you go, 678, baby. Look at that. 678 on the S&P, up almost 1% on the day. There you go. But life is hard. I think we all forget sometimes. Life is like, there's so much shit we have to deal with life. And it's like just being able to sit back and know that you have a group of people that have your back, right? And that care about you and that actually want to engage. And I think that's, I mean, like the fact that people even say happy birthday to random people in the chat. You know, someone in the chat said, I just had a baby girl. I just had a newborn, and people are supportive. Like that's the part that makes it really cool. Because then when you meet in person, it's like a legit a sense of like emotional connection to these people, these quote unquote strangers in the chat. But it happens because there's a community. And then if we all get to make money together, as the S&P is at 678, that also helps as well, which is nice. Elliot, thank you for becoming a channel member. Appreciate it. Thank you for being here. And then Santosh, thank you for becoming a channel member as well. Oriel, thanks for the super chat. I appreciate what you do. I've watched your videos more than any other media. I feel you genuinely care about your followers. Yeah, I mean, look, I just care. I love the game of content creation. And I think that's also why the channel has been successful. Like, I really do not care about the money aspect of it. Obviously, this is a business and you want to turn it into something that's profitable long-term and all that stuff. But again, my philosophy has always been that building a brand will eventually allow you to make more money than the monetization of the audience in that brand ever could. And I think that thesis has been proven to be very accurate. But the only people who can survive via that mindset, AKA I will make my money on the back end, I don't have to make my money on the front end, are people that love doing the work because they just enjoy the process of the game and they know that eventually the money will find them. And I think that's why the channel is working. So S&P 678, dude. She's not stopping. Look at that. 678.30. She's not freaking stopping. Some of us even overshare. Yeah, it's part of it. It's part of it. Matt says the people I met in Miami were absolutely awesome. I'm sure the other towns are just as great. Dude, it is really cool. The meetups are a lot of work, and there's been a lot of work behind the scenes, but I like every time I think of the amount of work that needs to go into it, which is a bit daunting because it's a lot of shit to do, I remember that like the feeling of everyone being there at once, it is so special, and I just want everyone to one day have a chance to experience it. So we got to put in the work to make it happen. But hopefully it will in 2026. All right, cool. I think that's it. Thank you, everybody. We got the S&P making all-time highs. Bitcoin, are we kind of following? Bitcoin at 110, Ethereum trying to get back to 4,000. I think we can end out the day at all-time highs, at least above 673. And if so, that would be really bullish. And then we'll keep going from there. I think Steve will be on the close. We'll see what we've got going on, see if we have any other headlines. And if so, we'll keep going from there. John, thanks for the super chat. Congrats on your accomplishment with the YouTube milestone, new apartment. Love every live call and finally broke 70K from 11K in April. Wow, 11 to 75. I mean, the markets, again, they have just been incredible this year. And really, it's been a retail story because the only people that were buying in April were retail investors. So incredible, incredible stuff across the entire board. All right, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll be back on the market close. If I don't see you on the close, I'll see you Sunday for the future stream. And yeah, if I don't see you Sunday, then I'll see you Monday for the market open. And next week is a crazy week. SoFi, FOMC, Google, Meta, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon. It's going to be a massive week, but it'll be fun. And we're going to keep navigating it every single day. All right. Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it. I'll see you guys on the market close. Bye, everyone. Have a good one.